Standing in a crowded room, but it feels so empty. I'm haunted by my thoughts of you, and it's killing me, killing me. I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. And I know it's all my fault. I feel the guilt and the shame. Tried to make a deal with the devil, but he just turned me away. So what can I do to get back to you? I run through the fire and bathe in the brimstone. Visions of your face, it keeps me away. I have no peace, this pain won't leave me alone. No, I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you.
What I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch. I had to deal with the cards dealt, hey, when no one's helped. When it's time for action, headlines and captions. Just imagine all of the hours that I put in running and gunning the passion. All of them clap, big applause. Wish I could pause all their reactions. Ooh, we know I never had a losing streak. I know you see it, what adrenaline's doing to me. I've been kicking game, Bruce Lee. You ain't in the game too weak. Make them feel the pain too deep. Tell them get out the kitchen, you can't take the heat. Hey, what I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there
early bird gets the worm, I don't got time to snooze. I'm not in the fray, but every year I still pay my dues. Do it for mama dues. Wanna get a house with a pool and an amazing view, so she could watch her son do what he wanna do. Cause lately I've been ballin' like an alley-oop.
We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face.
You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, but never find someone who's right. Keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find another me. Try and try, never find. Try and try, never find. What is missing when you've been? Tell me something I can hear. Body screaming. You won't admit that you want me close. I know you need, you know I know. When you're with me, you feel it the most on the low, low, low. You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find someone who's right. Keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find another me.
I just wanna lay here. Don't know what I'm waiting for. Don't know what I'm aiming for. I've just gotta feel it. Late night, yeah, my head be spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. Come on, it's time to have some fun. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna break it down. We giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. We're gonna show 'em. I've got to keep fighting. Strike hard, I'm like lightning. It's my life, I rewrite it. Yeah, I'm gonna show ya. Late night, yeah, my head be spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. Strike hard up like lightning. It's time to have some fun. Yeah, that's my life. That's right. And I've got to keep fighting. We're giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. Come on. This is our time and we're gonna show 'em.
Do you feel what the eyes can't see? You hear it calling way down deep. Trust your heart, it'll keep you true. This world expects so much from you. From the dark out into the light, it'll come in the middle of the night. You were raised in the secret place. Evil runs when it sees your face. Wrong calls your name, you know it's your time. Good will stand and the shadows will hide. Thousand souls listen at your side. Take your people into the light. They won't take you alive. Stand here and you must follow me, my friend. Stay together, we can make it home again. Take a look at this place once more. The people, the home that you're fighting for. Wrong calls your name, you know it's your time. Good will stand and the shadows will hide. Thousand souls listen at your side. Take your people into the light. They won't take you alive. Stand here and every step will test your soul. You will walk out pure and whole, stronger than the day before. Tomorrow you'll fight for more.
So don't you tell me about love is the Don't you tell me about notice the luscious, divine. I'll empty your mind, 'cause you want me to. I'm so twisted, you're addicted. I feel your pain, 'cause you want me to. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want. Make you feel I'm so good for you. Love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give everything you desire. So close the doors, let me in, let me taste the darkness in you. No one serves me like you. You ask me to slay you, to burn you, to haunt you, so you feel. So do you feel me now? I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want. Make you feel I'm so good for you. Love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give
be a warning. It's a cruel fate for love to fall apart. It's a switch blade drawn across my heart, and I don't wanna think what I'm thinking. And I don't wanna fall, but I'm falling. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Fires keep burning. Desires keep turning black. It's not over till I say so. It's not over till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it. I lie low, but in truth, I'm biding my time. Gonna mark what I choose, gonna sharpen my tongue. And I want to be free, but I need you. And I'm not gonna beg, so I tell you. It's not over till I say so. It's not over till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go.
I'll challenge you, I'll challenge him, I'll challenge everyone, I am a king. I'll challenge statuses, I challenge me. Step to my game, you got no time to sleep. I run in the wind, I run in the snow. Outwork them all, best expect me to blow. I've tasted the low, I've tasted the high. Best I ever did was to not give it time, I just stayed on my grind. What you gonna do when they come for you? We just go hard. What you gonna do when you lose out? You just go hard. What you gonna do when they come for you? You just go hard. What you gonna do when you fall down? You just go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go standing in a crowded room, but it feels so empty. I'm haunted by my thoughts of you, and it's killing me, killing me. I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. And I know it's all my fault. I feel the guilt and the shame. Tried to make a deal with the devil, but he just turned me away. So what can I do to get back to you? I run through the fire and bathe in the brimstone. Visions of your face, it keeps me away. I have no peace, this pain won't leave me alone. No, I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you.
Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. Yeah, the money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch. I had to deal with the cards dealt, hey, with no one's help. When it's time for action, headlines and captions. Just imagine all of the hours that I put in running and gunning the passion. All of them clap, big applause. Wish I could pause all their reactions. Ooh, we know I never had a losing streak. I know you see what adrenaline's doing to me. I've been kicking game Bruce Lee. You ain't in the game too weak. Make them feel the pain too deep. Tell them get out the kitchen, you can't take the heat. Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. Yeah, the money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we
Early bird gets the worm, I don't got time to snooze. I'm not in the fray, but every year I still pay my dues. Do it for mama dues. Wanna get a house with a pool and an amazing view, so she could watch her son do what he wanna do. Cause lately I've been ballin' like an alley-oop.
We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face.
You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, but never find someone who's right. Keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find another me. Try and try, never find. Try and try, never find. What is missing when you've been? Tell me something I can hear. Body screaming. You won't admit that you want me close. I know you need, you know I know. When you're with me, you feel it the most on the low, low, low. You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, but never find someone who's right. Keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find another me.
I just wanna lay here. Don't know what I'm waiting for. Don't know what I'm aiming for. I've just gotta feel it. Late night, yeah, my head be spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. Come on, it's time to have some fun. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna break it down. We giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. We're gonna show 'em. I've got to keep fighting. Strike hard, I'm like lightning. It's my life, I rewrite it. Yeah, I'm gonna show ya. Late night, yeah, my head be spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up.
It's time to show 'em how we stand. This is the glow up. Strike hard up like lightning. It's time to have some fun. Yeah, it's my life. That's right. And I've got to keep fighting. We're giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. Come on. This is our time and we're gonna show 'em.
Do you feel what the eyes can't see? You hear it calling way down deep. Trust your heart, it'll keep you true. This world expects so much from
my dues. Do it for mama dues. Wanna get a house with a pool and an amazing view, so she could watch her son do what he wanna do. Cause lately I've been ballin' like an alley-oop.
We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. I don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. I don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. See it on your face. Luscious, divine, I'll empty your mind, 'cause you want me to. I'm so twisted, you're addicted, I feel your pain, 'cause you want me to. I'm so good for you, I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you, I'm so bad for you. I'm so bad for you, I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want, make you feel. I'm so good for you, love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you so close the doors, let me in, let me taste the darkness in you. No one serves me like you. You ask me to slay you, to burn you, to haunt you, so you feel. So do you feel me now? I'm so good for you, I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you, I'm so bad for you. I'm so bad for you, I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want, make you feel. I'm so good for you, love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you
Hello, LCO and PCS fans alike. It is time now for match number 5 of our PCS playoffs, of course, brought to you by Riot Games and Carry Live. And before we get into it, of course, I want to remind you that there is a PCS Facebook page that will have all the information regarding the playoffs as we continue through them. Now, I am the host, Vestian. Alongside me, once again, it's Shock.
G'day fellas, here for the second week of our PCS playoffs, and it should be pretty interesting. We're going to start to see our playoffs really shape up because I believe starting today is our first elimination matches, the first ones where we will see a team sent home, and of course that will be one of the teams from today. So how are you feeling about today's match? You know, Bliss versus CFO, because personally, I'm not sure what kind of CFO is going to show up. We've seen various different CFOs over the split and over the year, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we see second round robin CFO, a pretty good chance that Bliss at least take a couple of games, if not the series, in all honesty. But if we see the tiebreaker CFO or the first round robin CFO, it feels like it'll just be a real quick, snappy 3-0. So you really can't tell because CFO did look pretty bad in their second round robin, which feels pretty good if you're Team Bliss. But on the other hand, that tiebreaker they had was very, very clean against Frank. So there is concerns if they're able to maintain that sort of form. But obviously this is now your playoff brackets. It is going to be Team Bliss versus CFO in our first elimination match, as Shock so wisely put. And tomorrow will be Chiefs versus Frank in our second one. But, I mean, it's important here. Bliss going to have our second showing of this playoffs, and they are yet to have a win in the PCS, so really looking for something here.
Yeah, yet to have a win throughout the entire year in the PCS, so really do want to, you'd have to say, even if they don't pick up the series, really want to pick up that first win. And I think, like you said, if it's the CFO that looked a bit shakier, a lot shakier even, throughout that second half of our split, then there's a pretty good chance that Bliss can take it to them. But at the same time, even when CFO were kind of struggling in that second stage, they still were very, very dominant early game. And that's something I worry about a lot for Bliss, because I think the LCO teams in general kind of struggle in the early game, and it's been a lot of difficulty, right, being able to match even in that first 15 minutes. I think there was a stat in the pre-show that said that Bliss averaged down 3,900 gold at 15 minutes or 14 minutes or something, so it's a pretty ridiculous deficit. And beyond, of course, they're not the strongest early game team, but they are strong, and they also have kind of a follow-up to it, right, of having the Betty late game win condition. I think CFO, they're more extreme. They have an even stronger early game, and while they have shown as that late game win condition, he's not quite at the same level as Betty. Yeah,
definitely not. I mean, quite often we see CFO get into those late games and have Shun sort of in the position to be able to carry the game, but he doesn't actually manage to get them across the line. So it's something that you must feel a little bit better as if you are Team Bliss. Now, importantly, I think something to mention between these two teams is the supports. So Arkia is also very well known for loving those hook champions, and obviously Shall C looks very, very good on those as well. So it might be a contested pick, something like the Blitzcrank in this series, just seeing that both of these supports really do like the champion. Now, the side of CFO, obviously a pretty tried and tested roster in all things considered. They looked really, really strong, as I touched on at the start of the season, but kind of fell to the wayside as the season progressed. And some of that, I have to feel, is coming from the likes of the champion pool of Gemini, where he looks really, really good on the Vi, but stopped picking it in the second round robin. I don't even believe he picked it once in their massive loss streak. And so it's something that now, especially that you're in a best of 5, that you can sort of opt to leave open perhaps and see if he picks it, but ultimately I don't think you're going to want to let him have that champion too often. And Jimian, he's had a haircut.
Wow. Just in time. I think Jimian as well is someone that you can bring up, because I think that the rest of CFO, they look a lot better when he does have something that can be either an off carry or a main carry champ. I haven't been a huge fan of him on the straight facilitators. I don't think he fills the same role in a team that someone like 1116 or Pretender might fill. If you remember last split, he really came into his own on the control mages towards the tail end of the split. And even if it's something kind of like, you know, like a Talia that has the ability to do both, I think that's really good. And PCS Talias have been phenomenal.
Yeah, and I believe he was one of the Talia players.
He was, yeah.
So, and now we saw Maple obviously bring that out against DCG last week. It's something to keep your eyes on to see if it's going to come up as a hot pick. It was picked into the Jace, so definitely something to keep worrying about, I suppose, if you're an LCO team and you don't want to pick it. But there is so much to really look at this team. You can look at their sort of success, and a lot of it I do feel actually came around Gemini and the Vi. I think they win so many more games when he is on the Vi. And then the rest of the team, they pretty much played the same stuff the whole split. I mean, Shun continued to play the Xayah, Rest continued to play the Jax and the Renekton, but ultimately, it wasn't too much success. And mid lane comparison, I mean, pretty good stats for both of them, but notably, it is Daystar that has an edge in almost all of them.
I think kind of interesting there, the forward percentage, Jimmy's is higher, but he's actually second. So I guess there's just a higher end of forward percentage there amongst the PCS mid laners. Damage percent does slightly favor Jimmy, but it's of course close. And I think champion pool should be relatively similar between these two. I think they are capable of playing almost everything. Maybe the Azir, a bit higher priority for Jimmy. We haven't seen it. Have we seen it in the playoffs so far? I feel like we
have seen it. Kize picked it.
Oh, that's right. So, we also saw Mission play versus Akali, so we have seen it a couple times. Not sure how Mission got Azir, but he did somehow. But yeah, I mean, I think mid lane is a pretty important part of this game because I think something that in Bliss's last series they did is oftentimes they'd have Daystar in one of those scaling champs, right? Like LeBlanc is very strong in the lane, but she doesn't scale into early skirmishes, right? And that's a problem because so much of the map is just collapsing around them. And I think if Bliss want to succeed, they're going to need strength from their early mid jungle. And Renekton Xayah taken away already. I like the Renekton ban. I think that Renekton does really well what CFO wants. They have a lot of early strength, easily win skirmishes, can secure that Herald. So I think that's a good start.
I honestly like the Xayah ban too. I think Shun's looked most strong on it. And now Kai'Sa notably is absent from the bans thus far. There is one more to come through for CFO. And I wonder if it's just something that Team Bliss want to take away if it's left open. Does feel like at this stage, you don't really want to be giving over the Kai'Sa. We did see it lose once last week, but on the other side, it did also win 6 games. So 6-1, and Team Bliss do secure that one for themselves. So a very powerful pick already picked up now. Tristana banned, but Jace is not.
Yeah, Jace and Maokai are both available. You could also do Jace Sedge, but Jace Maokai feels like the best pick. And I think you have to take Jace away. I don't think you want to give the Kai'Sa Jace over. So already liking what CFO have, but Bliss, there's a strong 2. They've got the Kai'Sa. It's really now about what you pick with it. I think maybe, yeah, you just take Sedge Jax. I'd be down for that. Okay. Yeah, I'm a big fan so far of both comps. I think this is the most meta we've seen Bliss draft so far. This feels very PCS-esque. You know, if nameplates are off, I'd definitely be looking and say, yeah, that's PCS team for sure. Now, this pick here could be interesting. Do you just take a top laner into the Jax, something like the Gragas? Or does Rest have enough AP picks that it's not a problem?
Well, you can just go the AP Maokai if that is an angle you want to look towards.
Yeah, that's true.
Felios locked in, so it won't be that top laner. And in fairness, Rest, pretty good on those AP picks. Obviously, Rumble being banned out by CFO.
Yeah. But
very tried and tested Kennen player in his own right. I do think, though, he's probably going to opt into something like the Cassante in this game.
CFO, I would expect them to just ban away supports here. I guess you could ban some of the melee mids, but feels like it's not really any... Okay, they banned the Azir, which it's interesting. I think Azir does do well, at least in the early game, into that Jace, but in the mid game can have some difficulties just because of the poke that can come out from Jace Maokai. Still, though, maybe just respecting the Azir Sejuani. You know, of course, very strong front line for him to play behind. And it's just a strong champ overall. But what are we going to answer back with? Are we going to ban away those AP tops? They ban away the Kennen. I wonder if it will just be Kennen Gragas bans.
Yeah. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, Rest able to play both of them. And seeing that we do see the Kennen already, it does make sense to follow it up with a Gragas. Otherwise, you feel like it was pretty pointless in banning the Kennen.
Yeah.
So what will the second ban be here for CFO, on the other hand? Will it just be a support? I mean, you can take away the likes of the Nautilus, which feels like the best champion paired with the Kai'Sa, but obviously there is still the likes of Raul left available. Sylas the ban.
They do ban the Sylas, so Sylas Sedge would have been pretty good and obviously can take away some good ults as well. So a bit of respect paid, I suppose, just to the team comp that can come out. And I like that as well because I think that, again, LCO teams have sort of struggled with having skirmishing power, and I think having a Sylas would definitely give that. Now, what will the last ban be? They do ban the Gragas. So now what do you pick up? I think that you could take the priority support, probably the Rel. Alternatively, you know, of course you can pick top here. Would they prefer Alster over the Rel?
It would be interesting, but it does offer a lot as well. Obviously hasn't seen as much success as the Rel thus far. Part of that being
Yeah.
Junjie Rel on the support.
I think that
jungle.
definitely makes sense they banned Silas as well, if they are
Yeah.
going for that 4th pick Alistair. So now 4-5. Got to pick up your mid and support here. And what will we be looking for? Something like
Nautilus
that.
Ari.
Yeah. Having more lockdown does seem good.
You would then need to play a D Kai'Sa though, which might not feel as good, being that she is at a range disadvantage, and it will be the Ari locked in. So this will almost certainly be an AD Kai'Sa this game. Rakan, not a bad champ in his own right. Pretty good follow-up on Sejuani and Jax.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Bliss comp. I think this makes Shun's job really difficult, and because he's been so important to CFO, that could be a big deal. But now it's up to refs to put the finishing touch on this, and the fact that he's left it to last pick, does he have something special for us, or is it just going to be tried and true classic? Oh, I'd be so down.
We've only seen that Gangplank answer Jax once in the PCS, and it was Dr. Ivor who picked that one up. But this is more akin to Shun, I think, picking the Cassante to round out his team comp a bit better.
I did lock it in.
I mean, ultimately, I think both teams got pretty much exactly what they want.
I'd say I might even prefer Bliss's comp. I think that it's easier to play, and I think it does really well into what CFO's strengths are. Like CFO, the things they're good at is they're really good at fighting early game, which you've got the tools to fight against that. You've got that Jax Sejuani. And then also, you know, Shun's kind of the late game carry, and they've definitely got the tools to deal with them. So I think Bliss have got a really good read on CFO, and I just hope that they are going to be able to stand up against them in the early game, because I do think that if you let the Jace especially accelerate in this game, you are going to have a tough time once you fall behind and can't really engage. But if you can play from ahead, I do like what Bliss have.
Yeah, definitely. I think Bliss have done a pretty good job here scouting out to sort of identify places to play around. Now, one thing, if you cast your mind back to Jimian, when he played Ari, almost every single game there was a level 6 dive bot. So do you think Bliss are going to have the setup required to be able to find that? Because I think a lot of the success that comes from Ari is those roam timings. And CFO out of all teams are probably the best team at identifying when those timings are, which are why you often see them at such a lead. And obviously, seeing Bliss's gold deficit at 14 means this game, they have all the tools to find a lead for themselves. And I think that's probably the key to how to find it, is you can look top around the Sejuani, Jax, and your Ari, or you can look bot when you do have setup. You have that Rakan down there, and obviously Kai'Sa can follow up on anything as soon as she's 6. So I think that's going to be something very important to look at for the side of Bliss, if they are going to try and overcome CTBC flying Oyster in front of them.
For sure. I think having the setup and the potential to fight in every lane is really good as well. You know, you mentioned the Ari charm, of course, the Rakan knock-up, and Jax is a stun too. So you've really got a lot of areas that you can go to. And I like that. I want to see a bit of proactivity. I really just think getting through this early game will be so important. Something maybe a little interesting is Jimian going for the first strike. Sometimes I think you see the Conqueror against Ari, not even so much for the rune itself, but just so you can grab Tenacity more easily. You know, if you go Conqueror and Resolve, you can grab Legend, Tenacity, and Unflinching, which is really good against Ari Sejuani. But is going for the greed, so probably will be forced into the Merc Treads. Oh my god, he's rich.
Yep, claimed himself some funds.
Plus
4
4.
gold.
He's got a 9 gold lead. Why not? What are we cooking here?
Just warn them out.
Guess he's going to solo start, and this is kind of nice. I think CFO have managed to stop, Blitz have managed to stop any ward from CFO going into their jungle, which I think was a problem. I can't remember if it was in their series or the Chief series, but it felt like they were just level 1 wards everywhere. I think it was against Beyond, where Kongwei was just making sure there was always level 1 wards coming out. Now, Jimian, I wonder if he has been a little bit greedy, just with all these scaling runes. I know a lot of Jaces even start the D shield up against Ari, because especially if she has the Corrupting Pot and Airy, this time it's Corrupting Pot Electrocute, there's actually a lot of early game power that can come out of that. We'll see how he navigates it. Jimian, he's no slouch in the laning phase, so he'll probably be fine. Maybe a little bit of top trading that could come out. They've got the biscuits.
Ah, the most cursed rune. There's already 4 of them on the Rift.
4 too many.
I guess Kai'Sa, the argument for Kai'Sa having that, I guess, is really that mana.
Yeah.
It's impossible for you to get mana flow banned, and the additional mana does help on Kai'Sa, because even late game, you often do find yourself running out of mana quite a lot. But I think around the Jace, maybe not so necessary, as you do have access to mana flow if you choose it. Obviously, he didn't this game, but
Yeah. Does look like Bliss are getting priority in all 3 of their lanes right now, which might be a first here in the PCS. Can they do anything with it, though? Probably not, honestly, but I think just slowing down CFO from starting up any first dragons or heralds or anything is really good. For those LCO fans that are just joining us, CFO, at least when they were finding their success, they were very often a team that would get Dragon Soul extremely early into the game. They start the Dragon as soon as possible and have it stacked up by maybe 24, 25 minutes, sometimes even earlier.
yeah. Currently also the record holder for the split for the fastest game at around, I can't remember the exact time, but it's something like 19 minutes and 30 seconds. So when they win, they tend to do it very, very hard and fast. And they honestly fall apart a little bit after that. I mean, that's why even though they ended the split with a pretty bad record for CFO standards, they did still have gold advantages at 14 in the vast majority of their game.
Definitely. It's a bit of a theme, I think, for PCS teams. It really feels like no PCS team is really there in the macro as the game goes on, but some teams are lucky enough to have that superstar ADC that can kind of make up for some macro deficiencies and just 1v9 fights for you. Gemini, he's just pathing out straight to bot. See what's going to happen here. Recall is stopped. I think he's just going to shadow them while they shove this wave out. Just going to try and make sure they don't take too much damage and don't get ganked. One is crossing mid, so they are aware of it.
Does let the knock up. Charm will also connect, and this is Jimmy and paying the price. First blood to Why Not. He does go down, but it's an execution. And that's the price you pay there for getting greedy there on the runes.
That is. I think really, really nice find there from Why Not, especially because he got executed after. I think what is so critical about this is not even so much the kill, but it's making sure that there's no chance that Jace has Dirk on first base. Because if Jace gets Dirk first base, you find that first dragon and that first herald fight really, really hard. But here with the tier longsword, it should be fine. Get another shot at seeing this. But Jimmy, he doesn't have any wards, pushed up very far in the lane. No tenacity, of course, to speak of. Oh, and just barely dodged the vision there. Really nice by Why Not, actually. Gets on a Jimmy. Flash was held a very long time and ultimately used far too late.
I'm surprised he went down to that.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage. Junglers.
Yeah, Why Not already making his mark in this game, and while he's 1 for 1, it was an execution that came through, so definitely feels pretty good. That's 400 gold in his pocket and 200 picked up by Daystar in this mid lane, who has gone back. He did pick up boots and a Doran's ring, so not the strongest in his own right.
No, they do have another window, though, to punish mid while this Jace flashes down. You can bring the Rakan mid or even just have Ari go for a flash charm and follow up with all your CC. I believe Jimmy does have magic boots as well, so there's no chance he can get Merc Treads early. So he just is going to have no tenacity for a very long time. And it looks like Team Bliss, they might try and transition their early mid and bot lane advantage into a dragon. And while we are only 6 minutes in, I'm liking what we're seeing from Bliss. Going to use this prior and then should be able to go hit this dragon. Importantly, we'll be able to pick it up early enough that they can still easily rotate for that 8-minute herald. And this should just be given over by CFO without the priors. Don't really see any easy way of contesting. Going to be picked up there.
Yeah, and importantly, it's done quick enough where they can now contest for this Rift Herald, and obviously they have that power of Sejuani Jax, where it feels like they're definitely favored to pick that one up as well. So as long as they convert on it, feels like they've got themselves a pretty reasonable early game lead. And it might even just be the first time they've had that in the PCS. I don't remember back to last split, but definitely looking good so far in this game as they've got themselves that early lead. Now, I guess ultimately it's about converting it. As I said, the Rift Herald is there and available, but I think last week, was it? Game number 2? It looked like they had a chance in that one too, and it ultimately fell short there in the mid-game, so gonna have to not do that one as well.
Well, resets are coming through. ahead of this next Herald. Does Jimmy have the Dirk? He does. So we'll be strong around that first Herald. And I think that's one that both teams probably will want to fight. Maokai is still in the wings here. Gemini spent a lot of time just shadowing bot side and not really finding anything with it. I guess allowing them to crash waves, but he is level 6 off that. I think he soaked a couple creeps of XP. So now he can reset to that top side. Late on tempo though, and lived as Prio top. So right now this is just looking like Bliss the ones in full control of the Herald area. They've got the vision they need. They've got Prio in, again, all 3 lanes. Arky is on first reset. I think this might just go to Bliss again without contest. Shalcy is coming, but it's really hard to get in here. I think Liv should stay. I like it. Lemus, oh my. Wasn't worth. This Herald, I think it should just be gone. Are they going to try? They might try to play for the fight after, but I think it would be losing. And Bliss, this is really good for them. They've drafted those more aggressive early game champs, and they've managed to get the priors, secured both neutral objectives. Off to a really good start here.
Absolutely, and have to see where that Rift Herald gets placed. Almost feels like it 90% of the time gets placed mid these days, just to work on breaking open that, obviously, mid tower, which is so hard to break sometimes. There is no static shiv that will come through from CFO though, so it won't be as difficult in this game. Still though, obviously opening up that map a little bit earlier means that contesting the dragons later on becomes just a little bit easier.
Especially against a poke comp as well. If you can be the ones to have control over that river and be the ones, you know, setting up first, not letting Maokai saplings be there, not having the Jace poke at you first. I think that does go a pretty long way. Obviously, they do have a little bit of poke of their own, but it's not as much. Kai'Sa will be going the Kraken, so won't be seeing AP Kai'Sa, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It does maybe make his job harder, I think, as you said before, but ultimately, I do think it's worth it. I kind of hope the Daystar ends up going for Leandries, because I think it would go a pretty long way. It's very difficult to kill Cassante, and I think that's one of those champs that Ari kind of struggles against, just because it is so invulnerable, immovable as a tank. Really hard to deal with.
The most elusive mega tank in the game.
Really is. Minute 30 on our second drag. Let's see if any spikes can be picked up by the side of Team Bliss before that. I think Lemus, he hasn't based in a while, so maybe he is going to try to just get the Kraken before this Dragon, which I think would be a good pickup if he can. You might even favor CFO at this next fight just because of the spikes that are being sat on currently. But I think once Bliss get their items, should be looking to fight. TP does come out of Jimian. Did he buy anything? I think he got the Warhammer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no Mythic. Especially when you are playing the first strike. I think part of that is that he did start the D-Blade, so it was naturally a bit slower towards the item. But without TP, it's pretty unlikely he gets that Mythic before this Dragon gets fought. That one stack on Shun's Cull.
Oh, it is. Oh, that always feels so dreadful.
He has item at least. He's got the full Kraken.
Yeah.
No biscuits to speak of.
You would argue that if Lemus doesn't go back here, which you have to think he will after pushing out this last wave, because he should also, in theory, have his Kraken available to him too. Although, wouldn't have made as much gold simply due to the fact he didn't have Cull, so maybe he still doesn't. Herald, though, this will mean he certainly will. Plus a little bit extra.
Lemus, he must have a lot of gold in inventory. I think he does need to try find a reset. I think if CFO are bold, they can probably start up this drag, but it's definitely not free. Bliss can delay it quite a bit. And even then, it would just be the first dragon traded over, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. As why not? He's maybe fishing for something around the bot side, but with something's available, doesn't feel that possible. And do need to be careful of the Maokai counter gank.
Ooh.
Lots of damage on Lemus. I think CFO could start this drag.
And I think they might be looking to as Chelsea started heading into that river.
Lemus still hasn't reset.
Yeah, I think Lemus needed to have reset a good minute ago. Oh, okay. Jimian forced to flash out, but it is the Glacial Prison used by the Sejuani. So an important cooldown down, but it means that Jimian is now punishable yet again in the future. Has now got his boots. hasn't upgraded them to mercs, of course, but you'd almost expect him to get those mercs even prior to this mythic, just with how vulnerable he has now become, especially missing that flash.
Limus finally gets his reset, has that completed Kraken, but you do feel like it was far too late. I think that is a dragon that, if Bliss had spent their gold, probably should have won. Maybe not after the cooldown is used mid, but feels like there was a pretty long time for Limus to reset. Unfortunately, he didn't find it. Now the dragons are equalized up. TP is coming on to Shun. Yeah, he's gone.
Daystar coming in, does use that Spirit Rush. He's looking for Shun here, who's just running to the tower, trying to confirm himself some minions. Does manage to pick up a couple of them, but Daystar claims that bounty there onto Shun, and he's feeling pretty good about himself as he's now 1-0-1.
He is. I wonder if that kill should have been given over to Limus. Daystar has gone for the Everfrost, so spiking very hard right now, but I do worry about him later in the game. And Shun, he is just pushed up with a wall behind him. Again, proactive play from Bliss, which is definitely rewarded here in the PCS. Shun actually got himself quite a bit of gold off that tower, and it was TP invested, so it didn't come for free by any means, but still a really nice pickup. Could they have given the kill? I think they probably could have. Either way, though, it's probably better in Ari's pockets, at least for now. Questions come when you get a bit later on in the game.
Absolutely, and everything really, at the moment at least, going up Team Bliss. They lost the one dragon, but for it they ended up taking out Shun, and they've got more tower plays due to that Herald as well. So things looking very, very good here. They are only up, what, 700 gold? So not the biggest lead, but a lead nonetheless. And it's something, especially because this Ahri is now ahead. You've got the Sejuani who's now got that Radiant Virtue. These fights just became a whole lot easier for you to play. Obviously there is the Duskblade available now onto the Jace, which is a bit scary, but the fact he has absolutely zero tenacity still means that he has to be so scared around any potential fight. And there is a Rift Herald up, which you have to expect, especially with Limus headed that way. It will be a fight breakout unless it's just given over to Bliss.
Does seem that way.
They might trade gold for a down bot.
Yeah. I think that is probably the better decision. I think it makes a lot of sense for how CFO want to play from this point anyway. TP comes out from Lived, and I wonder if now that means CFO try and walk to this. I think they're probably too late. And reset coming out from Gemini will confirm this just going over. But once again, the macro from Bliss, it's pretty good. Make sure they get this objective relatively for free. There could be a trade, but Jack's not the easiest champ to dive by any means. And I think CFO's bot lane might have overstayed too long. We'll now have to go back to that mid wave, but mid tower will take some damage as a result.
Yeah, things looking really, really good here for Team Bliss. Continuing to give themselves advantages here and there.
Yeah, it is still relatively even in gold, but I think the reason we feel like it's in a good spot is mainly because CFO, they pretty much need big leads to win games. So they are not a team that play well from an even state. And I think Bliss, they have a fairly solid comp and it's not very hard to execute. So I'm liking their chances, even if the gold lead and dragons don't really tell the full story.
Definitely. I think something that Shock and I talked about off broadcast is that it seems like the LCO are better at front-to-back team fighting, and they've pretty much got themselves out here in this game. Now, they can look for flanks, obviously, but certainly a comp that functions as a front-to-back, as we see Liv being taken down bot, but it's not without a trade as the quickness as well as the grand entrance come through. Gemini getting pretty low, but Wynot's getting all stunned up, and the teleport from Jimmy and should just confirm he goes down, and it's a quick 2 kills here found for CFO. They're now back ahead. And a bit of a disaster for Team Bliss.
It was 2 important kills given over, and of course that bot tower picked up. Let's take a look at replay. So right now, Ahri is resetting without TP, so there's no chance anyone can be here. I think Lived queuing forward is a big mistake. I think at this point, you're just trying to survive until Sejuani shows up and until Ahri is ready to pressure with TP. So getting aggressive at this time is a really bad idea, and he gets punished in a big way for it. And unfortunately, it isn't just him that goes down, it's Wynot that pays the price. And I feel a little bad for Wynot because I think that he probably was doing the right thing. And Lived, I think he knows. He did just overextend at a time where you really couldn't afford to. But now that gives Jimmy a lot of gold, a lot of power, has those Merc Treads, and of course working on his second item.
Definitely. Scary Jace. But still, it's not the most unkillable Jace, as Daystar's looking for Shun here. Will go wide on the charm as he forces out that flash from the Aphelios. Does have access to cleanse still. And Spirit Rush will, of course, be on cooldown now, so should feel pretty safe for a little bit.
Spirit Rush being on cooldown might be a bigger deal than the Flash, just for this fight. Obviously, the Flash, much longer cooldown, so when the Spirit Rush is back up, that gives you another window, but Ari without ult is not really a champ around these fights. Wow, they just grasped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Won't be available for
Yeah, that seems super weird.
Dragon.
I think now you just give the Dragon up. We'll see what they do. It looks like they're going to fight it. Jimmy and is TPing. Nope, they are going back to top. I think they probably could have fought this with the Ari ult being down, but at the same time, if Bliss have committed so much to this, you can get so much gold top. Seems worth it, as a lot of damage on that top tower. Another one already picked up, so it looks very different from a normal CFO game. They're actually down dragons, but they are up in gold. And it's in the hands of Jimmy, who has an impressive amount of CS. This is something we've seen from a lot of the Jaces. It is just very easy to CS on this champ. You have a lot of wave clear, and you can also do camps quite easily. Just nice for the side lane. Completes the second item there. Daystar's working on the Shadow Flame, it looks like. He could be going Horizon. But if he's going for the Shadow Flame, I think he is purely just trying to kill Shun, which I don't even think is too bad an idea. If you can take out Shun, there isn't a lot of sustained DPS that can come through. But of course, if Rest ends up being strong, it's not a great person to kill him right now.
Definitely. And it is going to be AP Maokai by the looks of things. Leandri's being built out of that Fiendish Codex. Chelsea might be face checking into a Sedge or Ani, but does put down that control ward. Spots them out and runs on back. Now a lot of control around this top side. Baron spawning in a minute. And in all honesty, it is an objective that both teams can look at if they find themselves an advantage.
For sure, yeah. There's a lot of damage that can't come out. Lived, he's starting to get the better of these trades in the side lane. I do think there's quite a bit of gold for Rest. I don't think he's reset in a while. Let's see what he's got. It does grab himself the Bramble.
Looks like he might be going... Well, that could be anything, but...
Yeah, it really could be.
Likely a Gargoyles, I'd think. Oh, flash engage from Chelsea will confirm that Lemus is being CC'd up, but it's going to be ultimately Arkia who's the first one taken down, and Rest coming in from the flank. All out confirms. Lemus going down as Liv trying to run, but the Gravitum stun will confirm his demise as well, as it's a double kill found for Jimmy on this Jace. And as I said, both team comps can take out Baron very quickly. It's CFO with the advantage and looking towards it.
And how is it that just all of a sudden the decisiveness from CFO heavily punishes Bliss? They're looking at a 20-minute Baron here, and with the guns on Aphelios, I think it's just gone. I really do hope we get a replay of this fight, because Lemus died there, both sums and ult available. And you just know if this is one of those elite PCS 80 carries, that is not going to happen. Now a huge lead afforded to the side of CFO out of nowhere. I mean, Bliss played a very, very good early game, but maybe we're just caught too far up in the tower. Let's get another look at it. As do they have Herald here? I don't think they do.
No, they used it before when it got Nature's
Grasp. They don't have Herald, so they're trying to walk out. I think Lemus maybe just walks up a bit too far. Okay, so TP comes in from base. Yeah, now it's the flash from Chelsea that catches him. Lemus, yeah, he was just flanked and then taken out. Honestly, not much he could have done. They really just did not see that TP flank in time and walked up a bit too far to the tower. And that decisiveness from Chelsea is game winning, pretty much.
Absolutely, and you wonder where it was the rest of the split. But it's here now. It's here when it matters in this playoffs, as Arkia looks for that great entrance. It's going to be answered by Nature's Grasp, as Why Not's going to tank that one up, but he's going to get stunned up, and he's just going to get absolutely taken out. Does manage to live, but by God, is Jimmy doing some damage.
He is pumping here. And it's only going to get worse. Doesn't even have his 3 items yet. And it is quite difficult. You know, once you fall behind a comp with the Fed Jace, if you're not strong enough to engage, you're not going to have a window back into this. I really think that Bliss, they have to be bold. They have to find something here, because they are just bleeding out.
And Lemus will not be taken out. Daystar goes in, and he will. There's so much damage coming through on this Jace. Really pathing the way to victory here for CFO, and what looked to be a pretty bad game for them, and especially a terrible start for Jimmy. He's really pulled it back, found himself some kills, and now it's not really any angle for Team Bliss to look towards to find these engages. As you mentioned, it's so important.
It's very, very tough. And Jimmy, I think he became such a problem from those 2 kills he picked up under that bot tier 1. If that hadn't happened, if Lived hadn't overextended, perhaps we see a very different game at this point. Jimmy is level 15. I think he's up 2 levels. Up 1. Okay, TP comes out in the mid lane from Daystar, so he's just going to try and clear this wave out. But it's going to be difficult. I think that Bliss, they're going to try set up for the Dragon, and I guess they see the Drag as their win condition now, but I do worry for them because I feel like a fight is a pretty landslide win for CFO, especially with Shun having both his sums right now. They're going to start it up, but even if they get this, I wouldn't be surprised if they just get sweeped immediately after.
Yeah, Akia's got himself a nice flank as long as he stays hidden. TP coming through. It's going to be Rest as Lift found himself on the flank as well. That should give away where Akia is most likely, though. He's going around the side, and it is looking like a fight brewing. The Shock Blast will not connect, which is very important, as the Nature's Grasp does come out, and this Dragon should be taken out. It will be. It's going to be confirmed there by the side of CFO, as Liv does manage to get in and get onto Shun. It's a massive knock-up here, and they're finding all the CC, but Jimmy has not been taken out. He's continuing to run forward. Lemus flashes the wall. Why not being taken out by Rest on the far side? And the CC from Shalcy confirms the ace. It's a 1 for 5 in favor of CFO.
I just wonder how we got here. It looks like at 24 minutes in, CFO are probably going to play for the end. There is no wave clear available. Akia will be up soon. But this is a game that I would honestly say for the first 18 minutes or so, Bliss were playing out really, really well.
Yeah.
Looks like they will back away. Don't have the damage quite to clear this, but from going from such a solid start, you know, getting both objectives, just being up in gold, to suddenly just almost out of the game only a few minutes later, it just feels like, and you mentioned it before, the mid game from Bliss, just not good enough. Take a look at this fight. It was a nice attempt, I think, from Bliss.
Yeah.
You need a flank, and honestly, it's not easy. I mean, you're down a lot of gold, and your flanking Jax is down 2 levels on Jimmy as well. There are, of course, all sums for this Ophelia, so it's just a really difficult fight at this point, and I think they really made the most of it. This was relatively close, I think, given the gold deficit. Unfortunately, it feels like it might just be a little too late. Some low health bars, but couldn't quite pick them up.
Yeah, disaster. I think, honestly, if they were even in gold at that stage, it almost looked like a favorable fight for them, but it was really Lived finding a really nice flank, but taking his health bar to the extreme to find it. And while there was a lot of CC chain and it all did land onto Shun, Jimmy managing to pump out the numbers. 5,000 damage in that team fight alone. And Maokai, with the Nature's Grasp and those saplings, did 3,000 of his own and Lived looking for another flank, is going to be forced to flash over this wall. Moonlight Vigil, but the counter-strike does come through. And Lived will be able to survive, but Flash being down means it's a whole lot harder now for you to find that flank onto Shun or onto Jimmy in this next fight, which looks like it might be happening around this bot lane inhib tower even.
It's being sieged up now. There are no Baron creeps, obviously. This Baron is not available here for CFO. Oh my. The damage on Olemus. It does feel like Bliss should be able to wave clear this, but when you take that much damage from the Jace poke, maybe you can't. They can just Nature's Grasp him off the tower, which it is now popped.
Yeah, and this will be the tower going down. Shun's also got the perfect weapons here to stop any form of dive from coming through, as Liv takes half of his health bar in damage.
They're looking.
Daystar pops his ultimate, and Shalcy's going in, does find the headbutt, but not the pulverizers. Arkia, with that quickness, does a little bit of CCing up, but it's not going to matter, as Jimmy is half health now. He's diving in. They're getting pretty low. This is a very sketchy fight. Why Not does have to limp away, though, and he has used the ult. The Radiant Virtue now will not be online, and it's just going to be this inhib taken away, and some damage found on the way out for Jimmy.
Found himself a bit of gold there as well from his first strike. 2 inhibs down. And that Baron available. It's going to be really, really tough for Bliss to contest that. I think they're almost forced to do so. And they might even look for Lived.
Yeah, they're not going to be quick enough. That was sketchy, though.
It was a bit low. Shuni's got 3 items. Hasn't really had to do a whole lot this game, but he's definitely online now. He's close to having his flash back up. He even has... Wait, they all have 2 pinks. Look at them. Look at all that money.
Sometimes the amount of pink wards you buy is to your own detriment.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they're just too far ahead for it to matter.
Probably. That's a lot of pink wards, though.
Sure is, pumping up those vision score numbers.
True. It does affect your OPGG score.
Arkia at 120. I think that guy's getting the MVP of his squad.
Might be. I think CFO, they can probably just start this up. Now, they don't have anyone shoving bot wave, which means there isn't as much pressure, but the inhib will eventually threaten it. Nice dodge from Why Not there.
Yeah, Why Not might just be caught out here. Does have to use that Arctic Assault over the wall. Doesn't have flash available for him. And Twisted Advance as well as this Nature's Grass confirm. He will be taken out, and it's going to be Shun who picks up that one. And with the jungler dead, now it should just be a free Baron given over to the side of CFO.
Unfortunately, yeah. I think Bliss, the best you can do at this point is probably trade the mid and bot towers, which, again, it's as good a trade as you can get, but is it really worth the Baron? Of course not. Not at this stage of the game. As CFO will pick this one up. Now, there is a third dragon that maybe Bliss can pick up if these resets do come through. There's a big top wave that Jimmy has to deal with before he can TP. Even so, I think it's pretty unlikely that Bliss do get towards that fourth dragon, so it might just be pointless to try and pick this one up. Maybe they can try and make a pick as the side of CFO comes back on the map. Maybe then they'll find a way. One thing I will say as well is I think if Kaiser is going to go AD, you probably shouldn't have your Ahri build like this. I think this needs to be a bit more of a DPS build, because there is actually very little magic damage at this point, just because the Sedge is so far behind, and the Ahri is, well, she's full tank Ahri.
Yeah. Does complete the Zhonya's now, so 3 items coming through for that mid laner, Daystar, and really, it does feel like it might just be a little too late. It is third item here, the Runan's picked up from the Kaiser. But this Kaiser is going to really struggle to ever get through Rest's health bar, being that Rest has just built full armor. So really, the Ahri that needs to do some damage to him has not built to do so, obviously, with that Everfrost and going on to Horizon Zhonya's. Liv, though, he has taken the road less traveled and found himself a mega flank. Jimmy and even recalls, does use that teleport to come back as Arki's looking. It's going to be Liv who makes his way onto Shun, does go gold and Daystar over the wall. Did get headbutted away. Shun being looked at though is going to likely be taken out. But now Jimmy's joining the fight. He's already taken out Lemus. He's going to look to take out more. That's Why Not falling, and only Arki and Daystar, the Koreans, survive. But now it's going to be CFO who push forward to look to the end here. Rest just doing his best to delay backs. Daystars does get cancelled as well as Arceus. And they're not going to get through. In fact, he goes all out. He might just be looking for a kill here for himself. Back to the Nexus though. It is those 3 strong of CFO. Going to be taking that one out. Daystar, is he going to be able to get himself a kill, or will Rest perhaps get one before the game ends? Neither will happen. It's going to be the game taken here by CFO. And what looked to be a pretty good game for Team Bliss at the early stages.
Yeah, it does feel like they had everything they needed to, not necessarily to win the game, but to have a fighting chance. And I think, again, that first 18 minutes or so, I really want to see the goal graph too, because, again, that first 18 minutes, very solid. They got all the objectives. They were ahead. They were, I would say, accelerating towards their win condition. But it felt like as soon as they hit mid-game, they just had no clue. And they went from being proactive and started just almost not necessarily being reactive, but just falling for every proactive play that came out of CFO. They didn't walk away from that bot tower, and that ended up with Jimmy and picking up 2 kills. And then they overstayed, or maybe not overstayed, they overextended on that mid-tier 1 and were just punished so hard for it. Lost, what, 3 members and then the Baron after? And it feels like once you fall behind against CFO's comp, unless you have so much strong engage and so much follow-up damage that you can kill the Jace, there's pretty much no point. And I think that while they do have that engage, they don't necessarily have the follow-up. The Kai'Sa was kind of weak, and the Ahri build, I think, I don't know, Ahri's never really meant to be the damage carry, right? But I think you almost had to in this game just to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw by the end of the game there that Rest had built, what was it, Iceborne Gauntlet, Thornmail, and he was working on, I think, a Gargoyles. And so that guy was not going to ever die to Lemus until Lemus got to at least 4 items and got some armor pen through, which obviously wasn't going to happen by the end of it. And something you touched on in the middle of the game is that Jace is pretty hard to play into if you have to walk into him. Obviously, Jace doesn't operate as well if you're trying to poke while walking into the river, but if you're already in the river and they're trying to walk into you, it's much easier to land those shock blasts. And I mean, when you saw how much damage they were doing to Lemus, one of them connected to him on that bot lane inhib tower, took him about 2/3 of his health away, and he had to immediately go back to get his health back. And I think that really was that one misplay bot by Lived where he jumps forward and gets caught out, and Why Not taken out as well. So much gold over to Jimmy. And from then, it never really looked like CFO were going to relinquish any sort of the lead.
No, it did look very one-sided at the end, but I would actually say if you're Bliss, don't get too discouraged from that game because it actually looked very good. I think the draft was mostly what you wanted, and the early game was going really well. I think just it's unfortunate, right? Because if you do make a crucial mistake, especially as Baron is spawning, you kind of get that sucker punch of, right, the Baron follows up the play. And I think if that play even happens like a minute earlier, the game might still be somewhat fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's not good, but it's definitely still playable. It feels like once the Baron goes over, you're in big trouble, especially against a team like CFO that they certainly know how to use a lead. It's just keeping it is their trouble. But yeah, I think Bliss still have a chance. At the same time, maybe it's hard. It depends what way you look at it. Is it that Bliss have a strong enough early game here that they can potentially take CFO to later stages of the game, which should be good to them? Or do you see it as Bliss managed a strong early game and they still lost in spite of that, so they don't have a chance? Like, I think it depends how you look at it.
I think, honestly, if they play similarly to that, especially around the early stages, you should feel pretty good because they put Jimmy in at a pretty big disadvantage. They forced him to go back. Obviously, he died. They got rid of his flash, and then were able to keep him down for a long part of that game. It really was just sort of the one mistake that collapsed it all, because while Bliss were ahead, they never got a massive lead. They did get the 2 Heralds, which never actually eventuated into a tower. It gave Lemus some gold down bot. The second one didn't really lead to anything. It got them another dragon, in fairness, because it did force out that Nature's Grasp. But then there were a few mistakes before the dragon stacking could really mean anything, which meant that the following dragons just went over to CFO pretty uncontested. And I think ultimately when you go into the next games, if you get a lead like that, you really can just slow down the pace of the game and work to try and get that dragon win condition, because that can force mistakes out of the opponent instead of you forcing something that causes a mistake earlier. Yeah,
I completely agree. I wonder if we will see any stylistic changes in the draft. I wouldn't think so. I would assume that they still choose blue side, and I can't really think of any particular champ there's a problem. I mean, like, you can look at the Jace, but Jace also was very far behind and then got very accelerated after that. So I'm not sure what we're going to see from Bliss in game number 2, but I think they still have a fairly good chance. And this was Gemini, I guess, who dropped that deep ward, I believe, that allowed that flank to come through, or is this a different time? This is a different time, actually. This is far earlier in the game.
Oh, this is the initial
dive on the bot. Yeah, okay. So it feels like with Ahri resetting, especially without TP, there's just no shot you jump forward, right? Like, you don't see the mid. Your Sejuani is coming. All you need to do is wait. Losing all your health before Sejuani shows up is a really big problem, and I think it sucks. I mean, why not? He probably needs to just leave at this point, but they thought they could maybe trade something on the way out. Unfortunately, another TP comes in, and Jimmy made so much gold here. He gets 2 kills. He got the tower. He got first strike. He was just rolling in it. And then that engage from Shalcy was so phenomenal on the mid wave here. And Lemus, I criticize it for not using his sums, but I honestly think it's pretty unplayable. You know, there's not much you can do if that flank from Cassante is found on you. And it feels like right here, I do think Bliss pretty much lost the game from that.
Yeah, this did feel like really the end of it. I mean, obviously the first mistake was one thing and Jimmy got ahead, but then here he picked up another double kill and then the Baron, and you can see it on the timeline,
yeah,
really.
The goal graph is disgusting, because Bliss was, while they weren't miles ahead, they were slowly working away, and then just like that. I mean, you can see those 2 spikes, the one at maybe 16 minutes and then the one right before Baron where it just gets out of control. And damage, of course, was monstrous for Jimmy, and I think he probably will pick up the MVP, but I almost feel like the game-winning play was made by Shalcy.
Yeah, see, I kind of agree with you, and I almost feel like you could make an argument to give it to Gemini as well, because he really was where he needed to be at pretty much all the right times, kept his bot lane safe for the early stages of the game, and then, I mean, you saw the first fight that happened was off the back of his Nature's Grasp that was able to catch Lived on the way out, and then that second one as well at the mid tower was off the back again of Nature's Grasp. Now, admittedly, it's not the hardest champion to press R on and then watch as you go and mop up some kills, but it is Jimmy who picks up that MVP. He did do almost 40% of his team's damage and was up 5k gold, so a pretty good performance out of him, all things considered, especially with how the game started.
I was going to say, I think up 5k gold with the way his game started is absurd.
Yeah.
And he had 87% KP, so couldn't have really asked for more from Jimmy. And I do like it. I think that Jimmy looks a lot better when he is just one of these bigger carries for the side of CFO. This was him again, just coming in, putting on the finishing touches, and already by this point he was doing absurd amounts of damage. Level 14 as well.
Yeah, I think something that's interesting about Jimmy is that he hasn't played a whole lot of Jace this split. Last split he did play a lot of it.
Yeah.
And this split he's preferred to play the Tristana side and hasn't looked that good at it. So it almost feels like now maybe it's something where if the Tristana's banned and you're going to first pick Kai'Sa, you should just ban and get rid of that Jace so it's not going to be picked up by him, because maybe that is just too much of a problem for you to deal with. But I mean, that's all something that will come up in our next game. Right now, we are going to take a little break, but obviously when we are back, we'll have Game 2 of CFO versus Team Bliss.
Let those be be a warning. It's a cruel fate for love to fall apart. It's a switch blade drawn across my heart, and I don't wanna think what I'm thinking. And I don't wanna fall, but I'm falling. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Fires keep burning. Desires keep turning black. It's not over till I say so. It's not over till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it. You must follow me, my friend. Stay together, we can make it home again. Take a look at this place once more. The people, the home that you're fighting for. Every step will test your soul. You will walk out pure and whole, stronger than the day before. Tomorrow you'll fight for more.
Welcome back, everybody, for game number 2 of our best of 5 here between Team Bliss and CFO. And I think things ultimately for Team Bliss looked pretty good to start off game number 1. And now heading into game number 2, what do you think has to change? Because maybe we talked about the Jace, maybe you have to get rid of that, but it's also something that Daystar can play. So maybe it's an angle where you ban the Kai'Sa and look to get that Jace on first pick for yourself instead.
I think it could be important to make sure that Kai'Sa can be AP, because I think that the Kai'Sa build is a lot stronger with AP, and I think honestly there was still an argument for going at that game because there was a lot of, I don't know, there just wasn't a lot of damage in general, right? The Jax fell too far behind to be a credible threat, and the Ahri Sedge, again, behind, didn't really do a lot of damage, and I think probably would have been better to be AP Kai'Sa just because, well, it makes things a lot easier, and it also means that you can match the Jace poke, and you don't have to go to Shalcy's engage range. So I think if they can draft a comp where the Kai'Sa is allowed to go AP and isn't quote-unquote forced, I guess, to go into AD, I think that would be a good start. The Jace, of course, I don't know. It's weird. Obviously, you can't take everything away. What do they ban? They ban Renekton. They ban Nico.
Xayah and
yeah,
Nico.
I guess it was those 3. You could drop the Xayah ban, maybe, because it feels like if you want to play hard engage, then sure, I can understand banning away the Xayah, but I don't think the comp they played necessarily meant that Xayah was a huge issue.
Yeah, not necessarily, I don't think. Ultimately, if you're trading something like the Spirit Rush for the Featherstorm, then that feels pretty good if you're Team Bliss. And then maybe you could argue that Jax has a harder time against Xayah than most AD carries.
I think that's true, yeah.
But then, ultimately, I think you can leave the Xayah ban. I don't know that Renekton ban was too needed, because you did end up just matching it with the Jax Sejuani, which is pretty much what you always match that Renekton with anyway, so I think interesting decision there, but we'll have to see as we come into this next sort of draft phase what the angle for Team Bliss is, because I think their draft was fine on paper. The execution may be a little off around the mid-game, and they gave up, obviously, a little bit too much in that bot dive where Jimmy found a lot of gold. So I think ultimately, if you ran it back and you played the early game the same, but fixed up a couple of those mistakes, you may still just be favored to win the game. Look for those dragon stacks and then win it that way, but we'll have to see. Ultimately, everything could change. We could see an entirely different look here from both sides.
We could. I kind of hope Bliss don't change too much, though, because I do think that they had something very workable. I hope they don't just throw it all away, because the game ultimately did end up very one-sided, but I think it was just off a couple really crucial mistakes. Looks like they are keeping their bans the same, though. We'll see if that Nico is the one to come through last. So far, bans from both sides are all the same. I think the Nico probably should still be banned. Yeah, is banned away. Question now comes around the Kai'Sa and the Jace. I mean, you could prioritize the Jace. I wouldn't even be opposed to it. Daystar's been really, really good on it. But banning away the Xayah then doesn't feel as good. So it might just be the repeat draft from before. And CFO, will they just take Jace Maokai?
I don't see a reason not to.
We're running it back.
Does feel like it did completely fine. Obviously, the early stage of the game didn't go so well.
Yeah.
But other than that, this Jace performed, did a lot of damage, and we have changed it up.
Okay, so don't want the Jax anymore. Is they going to take away that Alistar? That is definitely interesting. I wonder why that... Okay, well... I mean, I don't hate it. I just wonder what their reasoning was.
Well, Alistair did set up a lot
He
in
did,
the last game.
I mean, maybe they just think Chelsea was too strong in it, and they just want to deny it away.
Perhaps, but I do think that Chelsea's just going to get pretty much whatever he wants here
Yeah,
and feel
just
fine
goes
on
rel.
it anyway.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it ends up going. At least this time, the Alistair does, I think, provide a bit more early engage, I guess. It feels like Rakan has those moments of just, insane engages.
Yeah.
But
Well-
they're a bit fewer and far between.
I think one argument you could make is the lane almost is more powerful here. Maybe not necessarily as a drawn-out 2v2, but if Alistair can find an angle, you'll stack up that passive there on the Kaiser a lot quicker, which means you will have just more upfront damage in that 2v2 down bottom. So that could be something that they've noticed. And it also means that it's a bit harder to pick the Aphelios into the Alistair, because the Alistair is a lot better at punishing you from your missteps, and obviously Aphelios not the most safe of AD carries. There is still the likes of the Jinx, which is something that Shun really likes, and also the Zeri, which he played a lot of last split. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see him just go towards one of those in this game.
Zeri was banned just now.
Oh, true.
I think, what else does he go for? You mentioned the Jinx, but maybe the Ezreal as well.
He could just go Aphelios still, to be honest.
That's
but
true.
Yeah, Israel is something he's played a bit of, and he's looked pretty good on. Honestly, Shun has been pretty much the most reliable member of this team this split. And so I think ultimately whatever he gets, he'll feel pretty comfortable on. Ari's taken away here, though, so they won't have the Ari matchup into the Jace, which does raise a couple of concerns for me, because what can you answer to match the pressure that Jace can put out?
I think they might just play Silas for the team fighting strength.
Yeah?
Because there are good ults to take away, and while the 1v1 matchup isn't great, they have a roaming support and a ganking jungler, so they have ways to pressure that Jace if they want. Do we think we'll ever see Shun's Draven into the Kaiser? Am I a prophet? Please
If
lock
this
that
gets
in.
locked in.
No.
Okay,
Not
if
Varus.
this gets locked in, there's some real opportunity for Team Bliss. The Vayne.
Ooh.
Oh my god, okay.
Ooh.
We're ripping it out here in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good against the comp, right? Lots of short range, lots of beefy boys. But what's your 4-5 here now? Will it just be the Silas? Because I think, again, Silas good against the first three, but maybe not so good against the Vayne. If you want range, though, what can you pick? Something like Victor? It doesn't feel like it functions very well. I'm actually not sure what they're going to go for in the mid lane. Of course, do have to pick up their top laner, Syndra.
I was going to say Syndra feels like the better of the control mages.
Yeah, I think Syndra probably the best control mage that you can pick up here. It's still problematic because Jace does outrange you in the mid game and there's a lot of engage onto you. But if Daystar can manage to survive and position well, then I think it does. It works. It's just scary, I think, to be a Syndra versus Rel Maokai.
It is also notably one of the best champs that press R on the AD carry.
That is true.
And, I mean, if you do get sort of up to the 120 stacks, as well as some items coming through, you do end up just almost one-shotting with your ult. So something to look at. Cassante might be the lock-in yet again. We might see once again this Cassante versus Jax, which honestly, all things considered, was pretty much just even.
Yeah.
No one player really won it for themselves. It was notably, though, why not being able to pick up 2 of those Rift Heralds, simply because of the pressure that they have, and that...
That feels like a really good pick.
Yeah, that is a very, very good pick here. Can find its way, especially for a flank, can find a way onto Daystar, or force out that stun, which means that Daystar becomes a whole lot more vulnerable, as well as it is just a good matchup into the Jax in an isolated 1v1, and there's a lot of deny onto the likes of the Alistair. You can do it on the Kaiser ult, you can do it on the Sejuani, even the Jax. This feels like a very, very good pick here. And now, honestly, I think Team Bliss, I do like their comp. I think they have a very, very good comp here, but they have to execute it fairly well. And CFO, they are pretty similar, honestly, because this Vayne feels a little bit out of pocket, and it will struggle, especially if this is the AP Kaiser, which it almost certainly isn't.
Yeah.
It would struggle a lot against the AP Kaiser, but I don't think there's any way you can get an AP Kaiser in here. You really do want this Syndra to be your sole AP.
Yeah, for sure.
As is the case with almost any control mage.
Too right. I think you're right. There are certainly win cons for both teams in this game, and I think similar to game one, it's unlikely to be a draft that ends up making the difference either way. I'm really excited, I guess, to see the Vayne,
Yeah,
especially with Shun on it. Shun's kind of been the ADC to play the weirdest things, I'd say. Maybe an argument for Cascada, but Shun, he's played the Jinx, he's played the Draven. I believe he's played Ziggs before.
Yeah.
So is of course willing to experiment a little. And there are games like this where suddenly, you know, a lot of those stronger ADCs are banned, and maybe there is the opportunity to play something a little different.
And I guess really what Bliss have to do if they want to find success here is punish the Vayne early, because it does kind of feel like Vayne will have a pretty free time for herself later on. Unless Daystar can obviously find her and execute her. But going up against the likes of a Sejuani, the likes of an Alistar, pretty much the perfect champs to be a Vayne against. It's pretty easy for you to dodge out of any form of CC that Sejuani can offer. Jax maybe could lock down Vayne for a little bit, but Condemn also offers some safety there, so I'm not sure. It'll be exciting to see, honestly. We haven't seen a Vayne in the PCS yet. This will be the first one. I think for both splits, this is the first Vayne.
I think so, yeah. It's a little sad that I'm 99% sure he's going to have to take Cleanse, because you feel like if you can take the Ghost on Vayne into this sort of comp, you'd be so happy with that. But it just feels impossible.
Yeah, against Syndra, I think even, is the main... Maybe the Jax, but there is just too much CC that will be targeted towards you.
What do you think he built? Because there are quite a few Vayne builds.
I was thinking maybe the Static, because maybe the Static into Triforce or something like that. I mean, there's also been recently the Youmu's where you max Q, and then, I mean, I don't think that'll be the build.
Yeah,
but,
probably not this game.
But yeah, I think it might just be the Triforce. Offers a lot of damage. Triforce is a pretty strong item. Gives him a bit of movement speed as well, which helps. And sometimes in these team fights, to start them off, all you can really look for is sort of a tumble into the auto attack, and so the Sheen proc helps with the damage output there. You're often just skirting around the edge of the team fight until something breaks out and you can join in later.
Sure. Now, on to game 2.
Yeah, game 2. And definitely a different look. Chelsea already over this wall, and why not? Having a good start of game number 1. Honestly, I think all things considered, he played fairly alright the entire game.
Jimmy, he's got some very strong early game runes.
Yeah, as does Daystar.
I like it. Now, if there is a game to rush Merc Treads for Jimmy, it has to be this one. Syndra and the Sedge. What is Chelsea's plan here? Are they going to try to get a cheese on the Daystar?
Not sure, but he's definitely been here for a long time. Does remount and likely to be headed back towards bot. In fact, will be. And these junglers starting same side of the map yet again. Notably, though, Gemini will be starting the Raptors, while Why Not starts the blue, just by the nature of how these champions work early. Board will be denied, but it is there in time to spot out that Gemini's not starting on the blue buff, so they should have a fairly good idea that he's starting Raptors, just being that he is the Maokai.
Pretty much. Should be a very standard early game coming out. Maybe just keep your eyes on Why Not. This is a guy that likes to gank early, and he found some successful ganks last game. You have to think he might even have better gank set up from mid lane this time. Some big trades into bot lane already. But it should be the Kai'Sa getting push, even with the Alistar.
Yeah.
Just has so much push with the Q.
Vayne only has single target. One of the few 80 carries that has no form of wave clear early on.
Imagine a Vayne release today.
Yeah, what would be on her kit?
I don't know. Should Q and send clones of herself everywhere?
That's Nico.
Yeah. They just reworked her. They do the same to Vayne.
That's true. Alright. Top. I mean, this is another game where, honestly, all lanes will have priority again for Why Not to play around. It does feel like you have a bit of a ticking time bomb in the Vayne and the bot side. But ultimately, the games don't last long enough for too many items to come through, so I think you can just try and play through the Syndra and get some of those dragons online, play through the Jax to look for some Rift Heralds, and you'll feel pretty good about it. We'll have to see, though. Really, it is just up to him where he decides to go, as Chelsea is adamant to not allow a ward to be on this side of the jungle.
Oh, why not? Is this a gank angle, or is he going to invade?
I think he's going for the invade.
Yeah.
And Blast Cone does come over. Might be a smite fight. It was picked up by... Actually, I don't... Oh, it must have been Gemini. But the stun comes through. Gemini getting very, very low. Doesn't have to commit his flash. Oh my god, that potion.
That is so unfortunate.
If not for that potion, it would have been first blood picked up by Lemus, but It was the potion coming through. Gemini does manage to stay alive, and Arkia looking for the engage here onto Shun, and a fight is breaking out. Arkia is getting very, very low. Does have to flash away, and with that, a disengage comes through, but a bit of an advantage found for this bot side of CFO.
They didn't have to burn much. They used that ignite, but will definitely be up before the flash. Gemini, I wonder, is he going to try heal and just come flash on the Alistar? Because he doesn't have a lot of health, but they probably can just one-shot him. Why not's in the area, though? And I believe there is a ward in the river that might spot out Gemini. Okay, Limus warding now definitely spots him out. I think this could be good for Bliss. Gemini is really low.
Okay, they look here. They're going to find it onto Chelsea, who flashes away from his tower, but towards the Maokai that's coming down. Shun looking for this first blood onto Arkia. He's playing perfectly around the vision. Does end up getting taken out, but not before first blood. Why not comes through? Cleanse used. It's going to be another kill. Almost left it for Limus to go down, but Limus does manage to pick himself up that kill, and the wave's in a fantastic state for him as long as they can hold off Gemini from pushing this forward.
Looks like he will push it forward, and that's going to force Limus to stay, but still you feel like big win picked up there for Bliss. They got the first blood. They did get the kill on Limus, which feels pretty nice.
Oh, Why Not's looking. This Gemini getting low. The stun doesn't come through, but the Prey Seeker, the Void Seeker, mind you, does secure it. And Gemini getting a bit greedy confirms that now Limus will be 2-0-1 to start the game off on this Kai'Sa.
Yeah, such a good start here.
Ooh.
But he has to be able to reset, and he doesn't have flash.
He's dead. He is no longer going to be with us. Does try and get out, does dodge away from that crash down. Is he going to be able to find the kill into Chelsea? No, he will not. It's Shun who picks up another kill for himself as well.
Let's take a look at how this happened. I think this is pretty intelligently played by Chelsea. Not often do you flash in the other direction, but I think it did make sense here, getting close to his jungler. As it wasn't engaged, it started out with Arkia. But see, bought himself time. And they just don't quite have the damage here from CFO, but they still managed to pick up one kill, which is very nice. And so while it was, overall favorable for Bliss, Shun getting one was big. I do think Limus going down after, I'm not sure if that, it should have been avoided somehow. Either he needed a reset or Arkia needed to be there or something. Because now Shun is relatively competitive, I think. Has 2 kills of his own.
It is going to be AP Kai'Sa, by the way.
Interesting.
So, relying on Jax, really, to provide enough physical damage. And, it does feel a little bit good because Poppy really likes to build armor.
Yeah.
And so I guess having that double sort of AP threat means that Poppy's build path won't be so secure. And it may lead to Lift having a good time in the side lanes later on. As Shun being looked on, Headbutt Pulverize lands, and he does have bone plating, so manages to reduce a fair amount of damage, but still takes half his health bar nonetheless, as Dragon now being looked at from that advantage found.
Once again, they will use their lane priors in order to secure that first objective, so it does feel good. It is a bit later, though, than last game, which might make contesting that Herald a bit more difficult. Perhaps they want to look for a fight here as Arkia. He's getting aggressive. And I think this is a fight that should be good for Bliss. Definitely stronger at the moment, especially considering the mid items. Jimmy and he's built for, not for skirmishing, doesn't have a lot of damage. Just wants to be able to survive these ganks, survive his lane. And then once he can start poking Syndra down later on, it'll look a lot better.
Oh my goodness. Are we going to see another 3v3? No, Gemini does back off.
He's been around bot all the time this series.
And he's still around here.
Yeah, he's around. I guess he wants to look for the counter.
Has Nature's Grasp, but he's putting saplings over this wall to ensure that Why Not's not there. But Why Not is there. He's just in the lane. So Arkia will use that Hex Flash. Both junglers looking to recall now and get back onto the map, perhaps to look for that Rift Herald. Why Not realizing he is just sitting here on top of a ward.
Yeah, I wonder if they can cancel that base one more time. It might be too risky. Oh, looks like Why Not canceled it.
Oh no.
And very unfortunate. This is a lot of time wasted and should be the Herald gone. Pretty much guaranteed. As long as Shun doesn't give something over here. They finally sweep it. I think it only just came up. But yeah, a lot of time wasted. Why Not is going to be very late onto the top side.
Admittedly, they have prio on both those lanes, so it's not very easy for Gemini to go in there.
Yeah, he can gank a lane first, though, knowing that Why Not won't be there. He's going to clear out this red, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just looks towards top. Although, Aki's just run straight from bot to mid.
Yeah, didn't even recall. Just
So maybe they can look to fight it. Aki's got really good tempo on it.
this wave's a bit of a problem though. Lived will have to get that one trimmed up and pushing back into the side of CFO. A Rift Shield starter here from Bliss. Another early advantage in terms of objectives, especially if they can pick this one up. Chelsea's in the area,
Yeah.
and Jimian is half health, as well as terrible items for this skirmish.
For sure. I think this one's just gone. Half health on Jimmy without the Syndra ult even being used. As well as Lemus did walk all the way up here. I'm glad that he recognized though and is going back bot. Needs to be careful on that bot tower though, because Chelsea is already looking for a trade onto bot tower. So while it is Herald picked up by Weiner, remains to be seen if there will be a trade on the bot side. I think it's been avoided. The Kai'Sa with Shiv makes it a lot easier. Obviously, you can just one-shot that wave. So once again, Bliss, they're pulling themselves ahead to a slight lead, but they've got the neutral objectives. We'll just have to see if they can get themselves through the mid-game a bit cleaner than before. Now Jimmy's got the Dirk, so can be a force to be reckoned with in those skirmishes. I think Rest found him. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, Liv
Is he
getting very,
gone?
very low. Keeper's verdict will not hit.
We missed those.
This Liv, though, he's found himself a pretty comfortable CS lead for now.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising, right? I feel like most of the times we've seen Poppy versus Jax, it has been the Poppy just destroying the Jax.
Yeah.
Could also be just the players, you know, that tend to pick it. Right, Arja, big Poppy enjoyer. Kind of wins lane on whatever he plays these days.
Yeah, that's true. That's something you always have to consider. I mean, a notable one, obviously. We see this often in the LCO, where champs you'd expect to hard win lane don't. It can just be sort of the mastery on the champions. So obviously there is execution to them over just sort of seeing their picture. But heavy skirmishes around bot, and now it looks like we might have another one in store for us, as these junglers are loving this bot side of the map. I think it makes a lot of sense. You want to get this Kai'Sa to her items, and Vayne oftentimes in the early stage of the game needs some coddling to be able to secure farm for herself and get to hers.
Do you think she ends up going Wit's End later on? She probably should, right?
Yeah, you could almost make an argument for it second in this game. You do lose out on a fairly substantial amount of damage, but I guess just comes down to what your team really want to do. Maybe Jimian, once he gets his Duskblade, is enough damage for you to be able to forego the early Triforce.
Could be. 35 seconds though on next drag, and I think Bliss are going to want to keep stacking these ones up. If they can bring that Jace to fight early, would be nice. Herald drop mid as well, so this will be more gold into the hands of Daystar.
That feels good.
Yeah, he should be pretty close to Mythic as well, I would think. If he can grab that before this next Dragon fight, would be pretty nice.
I'm somewhat surprised he's going for the Ludens here. Well, it makes sense about trying to burst down the Jace or the Vayne. You have a lot of AP on your side, but it might just be better to have that percent health burn on the end of all of your abilities.
CFO, they're going to slowly regain control here, but without the bot pro and no mid pro either, it is pretty difficult. I think you're mainly just looking to delay this, if anything. Maybe you can make a pick onto mid before you play for this. They're going to start it up. Jimmy has TP. Does he have item? He does not.
Okay,
so he has the Warhammer.
They are angling to look for this. As Gemini early engaged on by Arkia does manage to go unstoppable, and he's taken a lot of damage. He's pretty low, and the ult has been popped. It looks like CFO have just brought down their top laner to be able to pick up this dragon. But yeah, Lived is coming in. He's got a nice flank here onto 4 members. Arkia notably does not have that Alistair ult, which could be so important. Shun popping his ult. Lived is trying to jump on out. And now, is there going to be a fight, or is it just going to be disengages? Shun for now is just wailing on Liv's Jax. The ult does run out though, and still going forward. Condemn! Shun is going to force out the flash from Lived.
Yeah, I'm very unfortunate. I think Liv misplayed pretty heavily. I don't think you need a TP to this fight. I think he should have just TP'd straight top and just hit the tower. Because I think if Poppy TP's away from top before 14 minutes, she should be punished so hard by just losing her entire tower, especially to a Sheen champion as well. So I think it was a mistake to come for that fight, and again, they're not necessarily behind of it, but it's a big missed window, I think, for Bliss. And Daystar will have to be careful. He does have the flash, but if he is found here, he will be chain CC'd up.
There is a lot coming towards him, and he is going to get CC'd at least for once. He's looking for Shun, though. Shun doesn't have any form of defenses, and one more orb will secure it.
Oh, no.
But it's just CC'd for too long, and it's a third kill picked up now for Shun on this Vayne, who is looking to pick up some early power.
It's so hard. Daystar has been playing his lane really well, but the reality of playing in a mobile mage up against the Realm Maokai is at some point you're going to die. Does go down there and going into Shun's pockets. Looks like he probably, well, could still be going for Wits. Could be going for the Triforce.
Yeah, could be either. I think it's probably the Triforce, especially now that he's 3-1.
Let's take a look at this though, and this is fairly similar, I think, to last game where if you look at the map, Jax pathing out to topside doesn't have TP. Almost a repeat of what happened last game where the side laner that needs to be playing safe, waiting for the Sejuani, is playing too aggressive. And this feels kind of a... It's hard to say. Does it just happen by accident 2 games in a row, or is it a systemic misunderstanding from Bliss? Because this is just the exact same scenario as what really put the game in a rough state in game number 1. Now, big trades onto topside. He's down a level. And I think if he had just TP'd top, should actually have been really ahead of rest here. Instead, he committed to a fight that didn't go their way. Why not maybe looking for something top? Jimmy is pathing out here. And this could be a window where they try and look on Jimmy. And he has the flash, though, and a lot of tenacity behind him, as well as now Gemini in the area.
Yep, Herald in 5 seconds, so maybe we'll see another fight around that. Notably, Shun, obviously a very strong member here. Need to try and find some way to take him out. And Lima's very close to 2 items, but not quite at it, so won't have evolves on either that W or a Z. And we'll have to see. Arkia's got a nice bush here, but should be spotted out by Shall C and Daystar. Likewise, in the same area, Magnastorm comes through with both of them locked up, and Jimmy flashing over that wall. Rest picking up the first kill there onto Daystar, and a 4th kill in the back pocket of Shun. This Vayne is getting very out of control. Rift Herald also secured here now for CFO. As they're starting to get a little bit ahead. They are up 2k gold with that Rift Herald yet to be placed down.
Yep, bad to worse. Full side of Bliss. And a lot of that is just off that play that happened before. Syndra, she burned her flash in the bot side, and so when she's caught here without flash, she goes down just without too much being said for it. Take a look at her here. You know, feels safe over this wall, but you can see, not easy to play into this sort of comp, and it's hard to fault Daystar for this particular fight. It's more losing the flash before that's a big issue, and Gemini's happy, of course, with that engage that they found together.
Absolutely. Now, what do you look to do as Bliss? There is a dragon in 1 minute. And honestly, you can maybe look to fight it. You do have your flash on Lemus on the Kai'Sa. Picked up 2 items as well, so we'll feel pretty good about those Void Seekers landing. Shun as well did use flash to get over that wall. Perhaps unnecessary. It is going to be a big cooldown down, though, on that Vayne, as Triforce will be picked up here. Very, very close to it already.
That's going to be a big spike. CFO, though, in full control of this dragon. I think Bliss should probably just try and trade at this point. I think Daystar should probably just attack that top tower. I think winning this fight is somewhat unrealistic, and it's not the end of the world. It's only a 2nd dragon. Now, it is Ocean Dragon, which would, you know, it adds a little bit, right, of sustaining up that Kai'Sa poke. It's very invisible, I think, in its impact, but it does add up. Daystar is continuing to push on top, and I think at this point, Bliss have probably committed to giving this one up. Now it comes down to what can CFO salvage on this top side of the map, because they will grab the dragon. They're sending Rest up to top, and Rest is not an easy champ to dive, especially not on this Poppy. Pushing in on bot side. So it looks like it will just be the tower picked up for Daystar, which is much needed gold. He will have flash for next fight, which is going to make things a bit easier for himself as well.
Yeah. This is the tower picked up. What do you think he goes for 2nd here? Because there is a lot of magic resist, even though it's just boots for now.
Yeah.
Coming through. I almost feel like a 2nd item void.
I think you have to, but it feels so bad. I mean, this is why you want your control mages to be the solo AP, because 2nd item void, it feels really bad, but it's a necessary evil sometimes.
Nature's Grasp will come out. Rift Shield's going to crash. Won't be the tower, but it is a substantial chunk. Half HP left, and Daystar did commit that teleport. So they don't give over too much. It is a big cooldown losing your teleport, but there isn't a whole lot of objectives you need to be using that to protect, as well as you don't really want to be using the Syndra teleport to look for a flank or anything like that.
Definitely. Tower's being looked at here, though.
Keeper's Verdict will
they
hit,
might
why
look
not away?
engage. Oh, not going to look for it just yet. But a tower picked up is nice, especially the mid one opens up the map a little bit more. So I think Blitz, while they are behind, they're not out of the game. I think maybe the most difficult problem for them to solve really is the itemization, because there is so much magic resist coming in now. And it's still a long time before Daystar will get Void, and I think that Lemus as well, you know, he doesn't really have the option of a Void yet. I guess he could go at third, but pretty unrealistic.
That would feel pretty terrible.
Yeah.
You really want to get a Mythic.
For sure. And I do expect Shun to be looking towards that Wits next.
Yeah, definitely. Has his Triforce. 2 items on both these AD carries. Now, Kai'Sa's still a very strong champion, and honestly, it's pretty hard for you to get either enough Magic Resist. Magic Resist not the easiest items to build. Oftentimes, they are just pretty weak. But you do notably see them coming through. Obviously, Gemini working towards his Abyssal Mask. And Merc Treads pretty much all around, excluding Shun on the Vayne. Now, Baron's live. Both teams, certainly. If last game they had damage to do the Baron, this game, double so, because there is a Vayne on one side and an AP Kai'Sa on the other. And so Baron, if you ever get the chance, does just get absolutely shredded.
Rest is looking for a flank from bot side, and Jimmy and TP'd in, so they're really committing to knocking down this tower, or maybe they're going to go towards the Baron. It feels like the TP from Jimmy was pretty random, but they got a bit of chunk on Lemus.
It is the ocean map, though, so Lemus will just heal back up. 1 positive for the side of Team Bliss when going out against that Jace.
Yep,
it does work.
There's poke on both sides.
Yeah, I was going to say, it works both ways, though, because it works against the Kai'Sa as well.
And mid waves, they're definitely getting stalled out. A Shiv on both sides mean that it's really hard to get enough time from mid to move without your opponents being able to follow. Can't wait till that item's gone. Some more pings on the Baron, but I think at this point, Bliss just want to make sure it's warded. Don't give Shun the chance to start that up.
When they took that away, everyone was mad. Back then, though, it was different, right? I don't know how it worked. I can't remember how it worked. Yeah, but it wasn't built even half as much as it is now.
It didn't have
It had
AP
like
on it.
Yeah, it just had like a base
bot lane
thing, and lived and rest, battling it out. Notably, rest picking up the wins in these trades. Has picked up that Bramble Vest, which means it's a lot stronger for him in the side lane against Lived, but loses a bit of potential team fight power. His vision going to go back towards the side of CFO. Just really what they're afforded for having such a strong Vayne in that mid lane. Being able to be first to all those mid waves. Daystar misses the stun.
Shun has lifesteal, by the way. Doesn't want the magic resist.
Oh.
There's a Void
Shield
Staff now
bow?
for Daystar. Yeah, probably is. The Void Staff is a big pickup. The really difficult thing now for Syndra is that if you do go for that death cap, it's going to take so long, but it is the best item at this point. But really hard to buy. You know, 1250 gold spikes are not easy to get. And then 3600 is a lot of gold to bring together.
Yeah. Arkia taking some poke from Jimmy. Notably, a whole lot less damage coming through this Jace than last game. Working his way towards the Maw. I think you're starting to run into some problems here once these items come through. The Maw's going to do a lot to stop the power of Team Bliss. Teleport coming through now. Full rest, and Lived has to recall before he's able to do his, so Keeper's Verdict actually goes wide there. Doesn't manage to connect onto anyone as this Baron's at half HP. Lived notably looking for a flank, but it's Arkia who gets taken out immediately. Lived comes in, does get condemned away, and Chelsea finds a 3-man Magnet Storm. Lived is just left alone and will be taken out as the poke now landing for Jimmy and Shun flashing forward. There's so many low health bars. Rest looking for Lemus and will find him eventually. But notably, it will be 3 kills here for the side of CFO as well as this Baron. And now they're going to start working a siege finally on this mid lane inner.
Yeah, once again, CFO pulling ahead with a massive lead here. are going to be able to break a couple more on the way out. And while the back end of that fight was just a Shun highlight, I think once again, Shalcy just finding so much value. I think commitment here from CFO is pretty bold. As TP and early want to do this, I think expecting almost that Poppy will land this ult, but it misses. Importantly though, Arca, he goes down so quick. The Alistar tanking is just nothing in the face of Vayne. And a very split fight, I think, from now. You can see Shalcy, even though there's no one to follow up on this, he keeps Syndra away from Vayne for so long. And then I believe the Syndra ult was used on the Rel, which means that there's nothing left to threaten this Vayne. So, teamfight really went awry, and yeah, HPs were low. Quick scope found from Rest. Maybe action might not be over as Bliss there posturing to contest a fight that I don't think they won.
Nature's Grass coming out, should land onto Why Not. Wallbang does come through there. As Rest, he's in the middle of the team, does ground up Arkia, won't be able to land their hit button. A massive stun, finds 3 there from Daystar, but there is no follow-up. He's flashed on, he's knocked back by that Bramble Smash, and he's absolutely taken care of. And now the following team fight, it's Liv who is running away on the top side. Notably down the bot though, it is going to be a kill found. Lima's picking up 1 there. Onto Gemini's Maokai, but ultimately Shun now just going to continue, tumble through, go invisible, and pick up more and more kills for himself. As 3 fall there for the side of Team Bliss. Arkia might be going down as well, does have the blast cone to get himself out, but Jimian is going to cut off his escape, look to secure himself the kill, and will find it. Keep his verdict. On to Liv there in the mid side. Is Shun going to look for him? No, it looks like he's just going to take the tower. Dragon not even taken by anyone, but a lot of objectives found, and CFO feeling pretty confident now.
It's a sad state of affairs, really, for the side of Bliss. Feels like the only person that has threat onto the Vayne is the Syndra, and she's just constantly engaged on. It's just so hard to play into the Rel Maokai. Is getting punished really hard.
More has been picked up by Shun.
Wow. Well, let's see another look. I like what Gemini's doing. Notice how he holds the W, even though he has the option to use it on Why Not, because he's just trying to find Daystar. Now that the stun is used, he flashes forward, and as long as this Syndra ult doesn't connect onto the Vayne, in fact, it was just eaten by the Dust Blade on Jace, there's no chance that Bliss can ever win a fight. Shun's in the middle of 3 people, and he's still full health.
Yeah. Everyone really auto-attacking the Maokai. Now it will be eventually this Ocean Dragon picked up by CFO as their Baron does time out. It's a 5,000 gold Baron power play. And again, we've seen another game where Bliss started off looking pretty strong. But around those mid games, and especially in bot lane, when you do send that solo laner there, it has been their downfall. This time being Daystar.
It has. Can they do anything left in this game? They are pretty far behind. It feels impossible.
Yeah,
your 2
mercs.
damage dealers are just up against so much magic resistance, not funny. And maybe that's something you need to look for in Game 3, is maybe stop prioritizing the Sejuani and just have a stronger AD jungler. You know, especially if they're banning the Xayah, the Vi value does go up. So that could be something to revisit in the Game 3 champ select. But for now, Jimian, he might be found here by Liv. I wonder if Jimian just kills him, though.
Oh, it's close. Liv
Oh,
staying there. Counter-Strike will come back up, but it might just be too little too late. It was very close, but yeah. Jimian gets hit by 2 Counter-Strikes and is still able to solo out that Jax.
That's crazy.
And I think that's really the tale of the game. Your Jax cannot solo kill the Jace, despite having a bit of a best case scenario. Things are not looking good. He is only at 2 items. While the carry is coming through at 3. Lemus getting poked out. We're seeing that poke land. Nature's Grass coming through. We'll find Arkia. Lemus, notably though, does dodge out of it. And Rest in the middle of the team again. Puts up that steadfast presence and is just continuing on forward. He is not threatened whatsoever. Arkia having to use that Alistar ult for no real value. And our second inhib being taken out by CFO. It's 27 minutes in. They are going to back off, and Baron spawns in 1 more minute. That could just be the nail in the coffin here. Should be resets coming through here, though, for CFO for now.
I think so. Can there be a way to contest this Baron? It feels so difficult. Almost feels like we've seen the exact same game from the previous one play out, where now 2 inhibs are down, and it's CFO playing towards that Baron.
Oh, no. Are you seeing mid lane?
I've already seen it, mate. Let's take another look at this. Jimian is 2 levels up, so I guess that's what ends up making the difference. But how often, as a Jace, can you just face check a Jax, tank literally everything, and still win? I mean, this looks crazy to me, but he's just so far ahead at this point. Yeah.
Oh.
Chopped him up.
Yeah. Really is showing the item disparity there.
And because you brought it up, I guess I'll talk about it. But the Shadow Flame Syndra into the full magically resistant units of CFO. Can't say I'm a fan.
Maybe he's looking for that magic pen that comes through when he gets to the Maw.
Yeah, true. The shield value on the Maw. Okay. Jax is pushing bot. But this should just go over to CFO. I think you need to fight this as well, so I think you just flip it at this point. Is that or you slow bleed it out?
They are trying to get there. Why not being close to the pit? But if they don't go soon, this Nature's Grasp just comes out, and there is now no longer a way for you to get in the pick, especially when that Keeper's Verdict comes out and knocks you to the other side of the rift. Rest does teleport down there, and Lived has teleported in here. So they're trying to do something, but ultimately, with the pretty much one-dimensional damage that is coming through, you can't actually get through Rest on the Poppy. He is going to recall. He has teleport available to himself. As it's now looking like this top lane inhib may not be much longer for the world, and following that, it feels like the game might just end.
I think so. Really hard to hold on to this. You do have Syndra with a lot of wave clear, but when your trade is trying to make a play onto Rest and Lemus is getting beaten up by the super creeps, it's difficult. And with 2 members actually off the map, I wonder if CFO do just play for the end right now. They take down Daystar in the base.
Daystar has gone down.
He had Flash. I'm not sure what happened to him.
Only Arkia and Lived here to try and defend. It is Baron minions. It's 4 members, notably an extremely strong Vayne. They're going in. Gemini does go forward, and Lemus does arrive back in the base, but look at the damage Shun's outputting. It's so much. The last Nexus Tower going to be taken out, as is Lived. He flashes back into the fountain, but Vayne certainly has the damage to be able to take you out even up there. Shun going forward takes a bit of damage from that Void Seeker, but ultimately it will be game number 2 picked up by CFO in fairly similar fashion.
I think so. I mean, I really feel like I just watched the same game back to back, and you do wonder now where you go as Bliss, because while I think there are changes that can and should be made, the problem is that despite finding your lead early game from the Dragons, the objectives, and the gold, when it comes to the fundamentals of the mid game and team fighting and skirmishes, it feels like they are just not there, right? They're not as strong as the side of CFO, and that's not something that you can fix game to game. It's the sort of thing that needs, months of practice, really. So what adjustments can you make? What Band-Aid fixes? I think giving Daystar solo AP might be the way to go. I think maybe just ban the Kai'Sa even. It feels really weird to ban on blue side, but I don't think it's working out. Maybe you can still pick the Kai'Sa if you can find AD from the other roles. Like maybe you go for the first pick Jace, but then you end up giving over the Kai'Sa. So it's really tough, but I think they somehow need to enable Daystar to be able to play the game easier. I think that game 1, Ari not a 1v9 carry champ. Game 2, very difficult to play Syndra in this comp in my opinion. And I think while there were kills on Lemus early, into that much magic resist, not much you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really the main point, right? Is you felt forced to go AD Kai'Sa in this game, but AD Kai'Sa does pretty poorly against Vayne later, just because you don't have the damage she does, and you have similar range, and Vayne really thrives in that sort of scenario. But then when you have gone the AP build, now the Syndra is going to be doing no damage, now your Jax is going to be doing less damage, because notably, he does a lot of magic damage too, and then Sejuani, she's all magic damage as well, so you've kind of hindered your own comp there by going AP Kai'Sa. But again, the build for the AP Kai'Sa is just so much stronger than the AD Kai'Sa build, and you kind of drafted yourself into a corner if you did want to go for that AP Kai'Sa. I genuinely feel like Bliss need to start looking at maybe not banning the Renekton, because I don't really see a reason to ban the Renekton if you're just going to have Jax and Sejuani every game.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because if you do leave the Renekton open and just ban, let's just say we ban the Poppy or something random, if they take Jace Maokai again, you can take the Renekton, and then that way it's like, you've got Renekton with Sedge, which is stronger, you've got a lot more AD damage on your team, and you might be able to get some sort of setup from there, because I think the Jax has been looking pretty lackluster, and also there seems to be a lot required prepared for this Jax to come through almost, because you saw last game there was the double AP tops banned, and also this game there was still a Poppy that came through and really made the Jax feel pretty non-impactful. Now some of that could be gameplay related, right? I think if he had just TP'd top and hit those plates early on, might have seen something different, but I think you're right that while draft isn't necessarily the main problem, they're not making it easy for themselves here either, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one, maybe the biggest problem
Yeah, well, this was
build.
a lot worse than game one.
I think this might have been even build was the biggest problem, because you are forced to go AD Kaiser in this game, even though it feels pretty terrible, because you've got a game that you want to be AP Kaiser. Because you have a Syndra mid, you can't go AP Kaiser, otherwise you just don't have damage. And I think, really, that's the moral of the story so far from both of these games from Bliss, is they've drafted pretty low damage comps. I mean, game number 1, notably, they had an Ahri mid and then went for the AD Kaiser, which, I mean, you kind of have to again, because otherwise you're drafting yourself into a hole in terms of the damage type. But then in this one, I mean, again, you've got the Syndra mid, and now you've got an AP Kaiser, and we're seeing the sort of effect on that. We saw like 2 Moors, an Abyssal Mask. I think an Abyssal Mask was being built on Poppy top as well.
Yeah.
And at that stage, you're just doing no damage whatsoever, which is a real problem. And I think notably as well, I mean, it was a great start, really, for Team Bliss. But the mid game has sort of been collapsing. I mean, this time around Daystar at the tower that you're about to see down on bot side.
It was. And this level 3 skirmish is one that Bliss did pull ahead in. Was Lemus coming out on top. But do remember that it was actually later than this that Lemus ended up giving that kill back over. So while this was really well done for the side of Team Bliss, I think Wino has been doing a good job of being in the right place at the right time. Gemini's there as well. And so it isn't there. It isn't super clean. But Lemus had to feel happy about that. I think we... Oh yeah, nice. We're going to get the speed up. So I think here, I'm pretty sure Arkia just needs to pass straight bot. It's annoying because you really hate going straight bot rather than pathing out mid. But I think that it's difficult, I guess, to... Oh, are we going to get to it? So they get the second kill. And this is the problem. This is when Lemus is stuck in lane. He kind of doesn't want to reset, though he probably should have. I think especially if his support isn't here, then he has to reset. In fact, he probably should have just reset anyway, because I think giving this kill over is pretty unacceptable. Even if your wave state maybe isn't the best, that was just so much gold given back to Shun, and it felt like all that good work you did in the early game was just immediately undone. And this, shall see, game-winning play again from him, I would say, as this is where he... Oh, this was one of many engages. There was 2. I was thinking of the other one, but this is another one where he managed to find... Wait, no, I'm thinking of another one. He just found so many engages. There was so many where Shalsey was just tying up the entire backline or engaging on them. And it just made them so hard, right? And this is why it's so difficult to play an immobile mage into the likes of Maokai Rel, because realistically, there's only so far back you can play. A flash Rel engage covers so much distance, and that is distance that Syndra has to play within. Now, you can wait until that is used before you commit, but there isn't really anything else on your team that can force that out. So it feels very tough, and you can see there in the damage that the Syndra, especially with the build she was forced into, didn't find a lot of damage. And once again, Gold Graph, I think it looks very similar to Game 1.
It does.
All things considered. It was just the same game as Game 1. And I honestly think Game 2, leave that Renekton open, and then just, do the same thing. First pick the Kai'Sa, but rather than taking Sedge, honestly think just take Vi and Renekton, because you have the Xayah ban, so it's really hard to be an ADC living into that. And then I think you can play something like Kai'Sa alongside the Syndra if you have a Vi Renekton, to where you can't just build that full MR. So I hope they do some draft adaptations, but gameplay, of course, has to come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that mid game's really the talking point here. It seems where CFO just have a better read on how to play it, and they respect sort of the timings better, where we see, obviously this game it was Daystar walking up too far, last game it was Lived. Gets punished very hard, couple of kills get given over, and it was the exact same situation as you said. It was like, why not was in the area, but you've stepped too far forward, you get caught out and killed. And it was Chelsea, as you saw on your screen there, picking up the MVP. I think this is very well deserved. Almost every single engage he found led to a massive team fight win, and it really did get them across the line.
It was crazy, because this was just so much consistent team fight value found, especially because you would argue that he made the game-winning play of Game 1 too. So far, he's looking like an easy pick for MVP of the series, but there is still the chance for Bliss to come back. I think that if they can clean up the mid-game and if they can maybe draft a little differently to enable their players, I think they have a way in.
Yeah, well said, but that's game number 2 now, already done and dusted. And coming up next, we will have game number 3, where Bliss look to try and get their reverse sweep here in the PCS.
distance, but I'll remind you there's certain things you're not supposed to do. I saw you in my dreams and you were falling. No way to know if it will all come true. Let this be a war. I want it, but let this be a warning, 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 a warning, warning, a warning, 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 a warning. Let this be a warning, 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 a warning, 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 a warning. But let this be a time and time again. I've seen you around here.
It's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch. I had to deal with the cards dealt. Hey, when no one's help. When it's time for action, headlines and captions. Just imagine all of the hours that I put in running and gunning the passion. All of them clap, big applause. Wish I could pause all their reactions. Ooh, we know I never had a losing streak. I know you see what adrenaline's doing to me. I've been kicking game, Bruce Lee. You ain't in the game too weak. Make them feel the pain too deep. Tell them get out the kitchen, you can't take the heat. Hey, what I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm someone that's coming in just how I do it. Can't stop, nah, won't stop. It's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch.
And we are back here for game number 3 and match point for CFO going up against Bliss here in the PCS playoffs. And now I want to pick your mind a little bit going into game number 3. What do you think are some adaptations that Bliss can make to try and make their mid-game, I think in particular, a little bit stronger and maybe advance their lead more or not fall behind so much?
The mid-game, I think, is hard because it naturally, if you're not getting the prior over the mid-wave, it's going to make things more difficult. And I also think that just because there's a lot of fighting, a lot of the time the TPs are down, and then that makes it harder to respond, right? You need to have those times of respect. One adaptation we already know Bliss are making is they've chosen red side, which I think is kind of interesting, and I wonder if that's just so that they can ban Kai'Sa and just not have to deal with that whole AP situation. Do you think that's why?
Yeah, I wonder, maybe it's something, maybe they do ban the Kai'Sa and that forces out a Jace ban from the side
Possibly.
of CFO, but it does feel like Daystar's a very, very good Jace player. And so it might just be that they're willing to give over the Kai'Sa now to get the Jace for themselves and try and have that side of their mid matchup, because so far in the series, it has been CFO who have been consistently banning out the Tristana, despite it being one of Jimmy's most played champions so far in the summer split. And so maybe, yeah, I don't know what it entirely means. It could also mean that maybe Lived has a pocket counter pick up top. I know he likes to play himself a bit of Alawi, and he did like to pick up Alawi against the Jax, at least in the LCO. So we'll see. It is curious as to why they've done this. I think it's the first time in the playoffs we've seen red side be the selection.
Yeah, I think so.
And again, red side has a considerably better win rate than the blue side, but that is just often because the better teams are winning and the worst teams are picking blue, because it does seem like the stronger side, at least during the regular season. But we'll see. It is Xayah and Kai'Sa banned away from Xun here, from Team Bliss, and so that'll already change up the draft. Maokai as well being banned by CFO, realizing that they're not going to get it through this first pick. And do you answer now with that Sejuani? You have to be worried because Jimmy will have access to the Poppy, access to the Vi, which are the two champs he's played the most of.
Hard to say. There are the Jace and the Sedge available. If you ban away the Jace, you can secure that AP matchup, but giving over Sedge Renekton? Now, do you think they first pick Sedge or Renekton? I almost feel like it might be better just to first pick Renekton.
Maybe, but then you do give over the Jax Sedge.
Yeah, but it hasn't looked so good this series.
It hasn't. I mean, admittedly, the early games have been going completely
That's
fine,
true.
and it's really fallen off late, well, not even late game, mid game. And it's not really because of that combo necessarily. Sejuani, though, the hover, and we'll be locked in.
Yeah, they go with the
So-
Sedge. So that means of course, if the Renekton does come out, they can match it with the Jax. And if not, they'll have that really strong combo in top lane. So it's not super easy, I think, for Bliss to pick into this. See
No.
where they end up going. I'm honestly not really sure what they're going to prioritize here.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll
just
have
go
to
the
see.
Rel? Oh, the
Ooh.
LeBlanc is open. So I think LeBlanc is a bait. I've said it many times. But hey, this is their last chance.
Yeah, Chiefs got to win with the LeBlanc being picked by Kize. And Daystar, a very formidable mid laner, so will have his chance now to show what he's made of on the LeBlanc. What will be the second pick, though? You almost feel like you probably just picked the Renekton.
Yeah.
And we'll be locked in here. So maybe Team Bliss realizing what Chiefs drafted for their only win and matching it very similarly. Although won't have access to that Sejuani, which was a key champion in that game for the Chiefs.
It was. I wonder if they are going to go for something like the Vi in the jungle.
Oh,
Azir. So this is interesting because Azir in the 1v1 does not do very well versus the LeBlanc. But as the game goes on, you start to get to the point where LeBlanc can't really come near you without taking so much damage in return that it's not really worth it. But I don't believe this is a matchup we've seen in the PCS in a while, or maybe ever this split, just because a lot of the time one of these two champs are banned. And I hope we're not seeing triple AP topside. Looks like we won't. Jax would be the obvious lock-in.
yeah, I think Jax or Aatrox. But Jax does seem more like something Rest would pick. And it will be locked in. Now, last pick coming through before the next ban phase for Team Bliss. What do you look for? There is obviously yet to pick their jungler or bot lane. Could always be an angle where you take your priority on AD carry. Because you do feel like the bot lane supports are just going to be one of Nautilus, Leona, Rel, Alistair. Even Rakan.
Gonna take the Poppy. So I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I feel like it's more just that there aren't that many strong junglers left available that are good in this comp, so you don't have much of a choice, but I also think that Poppy doesn't provide the best follow-up to LeBlanc and Renekton. While it can dive into fights, it doesn't have the same consistency, I would say. But ultimately, you don't have many options at this point, so let's see what Wynot can get done on the pick. We've seen some pretty crazy Poppy performances in other split. The Draven is banned away, so not going to see that from Shun in that 4-5. Rel Samira is still open. I'm not sure if Shun plays Samira, but it seems like the sort of thing they would play.
Yeah. I don't think he's played it yet in the split, but yeah, as you said, Shun has played so many things that you just expect him to be able to pick up whatever.
Yeah.
Notably, pretty much the only Draven player we have here in the PCS, which is why you see it banned. Milio going to be banned away. I guess that makes a lot of sense because there isn't a whole lot of magic damage really coming out of Team Bliss right now. And so getting rid of the option of the likes of the Lucian Milio means that you can't really pick that up. There is the likes of the AP Varus, which admittedly doesn't function too terribly at the moment into what CFO is showing.
I think they might just let Daystar be solo AP though. While it does take time for LeBlanc to start doing damage, I think just Daystar for so long was such a consistent member of the team, and I think just putting him in a spot where he can get the team over the line might be the way to go. That Vayne was banned.
The Vayne ban must be a confidence builder for Shun.
Yeah,
First game of Vayne in the PCS for anyone, and it's been banned.
What will this last ban be? I don't think it's very easy. They banned the Ashe, okay. I'm not sure they will go something like Rel Samira into the comp that's shown, so I'm not even sure what bot lanes we're going to go. I wonder if something like Cog Braum could come through for CFO. Because it is really good with the Sedge.
That's true.
And the Jax. I'd honestly be down for it. I'm kind of a Cog Braum hater, but I think this is an insane game for it.
Shun doesn't strike me as a COD player though. Definitely
he's
seems
a bit too Chad.
Yeah, he likes his crit 80 carries. And
Well,
if Zeri's
still
locked in,
open.
yeah. And functions very well here, admittedly. Can get lifesteal pretty easily into the build. So that sort of negates anything LeBlanc wants to do. And then, not only that, can kite away from the Renekton, the Poppy, fairly decently. Has a lot of sort of protection around her too, in that Jax, in that Sejuani, as well as the Azir. Feels like a pretty good Zeri game, all things considered. Rakan looking like it will be the support pick here for Chelsea up against the Alistair. Although,
Are we going to see
are
it?
we going to see it?
Surely it's a horrible game for it.
It is, but I love seeing Chelsea's blitzcrack. Now, Sivir. I like Sivir.
Do we?
I like Sivir as a champ. I know it allows your Renekton to have an easier time to get in there too, which he is struggling for a little bit at the moment. Not the best setup. Plus, it does give you priority over the mid waves as long as you haven't fallen too far behind.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Sivir as a champ too, but I don't think this is a good Sivir game.
Yeah. I think he can struggle with the range that's coming out from
Yeah, that's
CFO.
what I'm worried about.
Especially the Azir. I think that's the main thing. Otherwise, I feel like it's a fine pick. Maybe the Azir makes it a bit hard. But if you are able to contain the Azir, then it can work well. We'll have to see, though, as we are going to have our team comps locked in here. Ultimately, it will be CFO that are on match point here. If they do pick this one up, we'll take the series 3-0. But it's Bliss that are trying to work towards a reverse sweep, trying to find their first win in the PCS over the course of the year. Obviously, coming over here both times from the LCO. Last time as first seed, and this time as second seed.
And that's it, right? This is really the last chance for Bliss of the entire season. This is the game that they may be eliminated on, or the game in which they can turn their fortunes around. Haven't picked up a win internationally this year, but would love to up against CFO. And I think that they've got a lot of potential with this comp. It has a lot of aggression early. So maybe they can take those early games that they have been winning and try explode it a bit more. Because it's only been slight leads that they've come away with. And it feels like as soon as mid-game rolls around, CFO just run with it from there. But maybe if Bliss can build up a big enough lead for them before that happens, could see a different game. I think we are going to see a very different game from 1 and 2 anyway. You know, some different comps coming through and sides being changed, of course, matters.
Absolutely. And now you don't have to worry so much about poke either this time, the Jace obviously being off the table. Azir can poke at you, but it's a lot closer range, and he feels a little bit more vulnerable in general. Because if he's poking he generally doesn't have the ability to slide on out of there. So we'll see. Are we going to be able to see Team Bliss here take their first win in the PCS, or will we see CFO advance on to face the winner of tomorrow's game later on in the week? Something to look forward to. All things considered, I think pretty standard runes coming through.
Does mostly look normal. I wonder how Jimmy's going to go in the mid lane. He did take second win for a bit of extra sustain. I guess that's where the PCS finals is and when.
I believe that is maybe the website, I believe, that you purchased the tickets for. Of course, a live event for the finals this year of the PCS, being held on the 9th of September. It's exciting.
Yeah. Now, I see a little bit of damage traded back, but just an auto at the end of the day. Another ward dropped. That will protect this side. Hopefully Daystar can get himself a solid lead over the early game here, because I do think that the rest of his comp can kind of bridge the skirmishes for him early and give him time just to hit 2 items. And then he can really start to take over. There's not a lot of threat to him, so if the LeBlanc does end up getting fed in this game, she is going to be really hard to deal with, especially if her poke comes through before Shin's lifesteal does. I think that's a very key break point that a lot of the LeBlancs have struggled with. Sure, you hit 3 items, but if by that point the enemy ADC already has BT, you're pretty much done unless you can, burst them.
Absolutely. Now, junglers on opposite sides of the map this time. It's going to be Gemini headed towards this top side, which often makes a lot of sense. It helps this Jax survive the early pressure that comes out of a Renekton. Why not, on the other hand, headed towards the bot side. There is setup coming through from the Alistar. Not the easiest to look for anything, though, when you are looking onto a Zeri and a Rakan, especially now that your Alistar has lost the vast majority of his health.
And what happened here? Did they try and get prior or something? I don't even know, but admittedly, Alistar has a fair amount of sustain, but it does feel like a lot of health that was lost for pretty much no reason. I think that with your jungler pathing to your side of the map, you want to be able to... You need to stay healthy enough at least to set up ganks. Like, you can trade some damage, try and put CFO's bot lane in a better position to gank them. But ultimately, losing this much health, maybe the window will close, although why not? He is wrapping around bot, so he is skipping his 3 bot camps. Oh, he's not going for the bot.
Oh,
no, he is.
He is.
I like it. They have lost a lot of health, though. I think they'll still have enough.
If he doesn't go through River, feels a little bit better. He will be spotted out, but admittedly very, very late. He's done a good job of denying any form of vision, and the wall bang will secure that Shun gets taken down for first blood. Why not? Picking that one up. Chelsea flashes forward, does manage to pick one up in return. But another strong start here for Team Bliss. The wave definitely in favor of Lemus to pick himself up a little advantage. As why not? Securing his team first blood here. Gemini, though, looking to answer on the top side. Certainly could be a possible avenue, as there is going to be a lot of CC that can be chained between this Jax as well as the Sejuani. Liv should be privy to the idea that Gemini can be in this area, but he's going to get stunned up. He does have to flash away. And an advantage top afforded now to rest on the Jax as Renekton loses his flash.
That's going to be tough, especially on this side of the map with that wave pushing out. Take a look at this gank that Why Not found. I think good path to look for this. And while Arkia did lose a lot of HP, he still has enough to go for this engage. I think they timed it well. So all things considered, it was well played by Bliss. They get that. Now, it was traded back, but it came at a pretty heavy cost. Chelsea had to flash for it, and that was Shun losing both his sums there and didn't even get the kill. So a big win, I think, overall.
Yeah. Unfortunate that Arkia went down. Certainly didn't need to. Could have just backed off and Chelsea couldn't have looked for it, but the 1-for-1 did eventually come through. Relieve some pressure that the Zeri and Rakan were putting on to Lemus and Arkia. And now topside again. Lived does have his Fury bar stacked up full, but they're looking for a dive. Gemini flashes forward. Doesn't have access to the Q. He does. Does he pick up Gemini? He does. So it's a 1-for-1, but a massive minion wave going down. And the recall, or the respawn timer shouldn't be in time, and a lot of these minions will be lost. But good job for him to be able to at least trade the kill back.
Trading back is better than nothing. I wonder if Gemini could have waited. He did go before the creeps were under the tower. I think just felt like he needed to speed it up before Why Not could get there. Ultimately, though, I think Rest is the one who comes out ahead. I think a lot will be on Bliss's bot lane to do what they can with the lead that they've found off that early why not gank. I think it's going to be a while, though, before Sivir really feels like a threat.
Yeah.
Especially if Jax ends up being very, very strong.
Yeah, Sivir's not a champion particularly good at dealing with the Jax.
No. Nice trades coming out of mid lane. Looks like Daystar might be forced to base first, though, which I think Jimmy will be very happy with. Okay, he might look on mid. Just going to drop some vision, so a lot of control. I wonder... Daystar has got a lot of strength now in this mid lane. I want to see what Jimmy ends up picking up. Does he just go for the chapter? Does. Grab some sustain along with it.
Nice trade there by Lemus.
Dragon.
Now, Dragon pinged on. Why not? Looking to start this one up. Now, if a fight breaks out, if it's a 4v4, I actually don't know who I favor. Because this Azir feels stronger in a 4v4 than the LeBlanc, but maybe there's just enough power coming through Poppy.
I think I'd give it to Bliss. I think it's too hard for Azir to get here anyway. Nice little... Ooh. Need to be careful here, because they are on Dragon, so can't get too aggressive.
Gemini does force out that cleanse from Lemus. Nice Glacial Prison.
That should be the Dragon. Confirmed going over, though. And I think if you're CFO, you are happy with this game going slow, at least for now. I think you want to get your Azir towards one item, and that's the point where you can really start to get aggressive. Because you do have the means to fight a lot early. You've got a lot of strength in other roles. It really just is getting your Azir to first item. And I think there's also a window where CFO between that 1 and 2 items is probably stronger than the LeBlanc and Sivir. All trades coming out on bot, but the health bars are low.
Oh, Spell Shield comes through. There is a kill for Shun already. Lemus flashes forward, gets himself 1 in trade, but Gemini's in the area. He's
No
looking now
sums.
onto Lemus, who doesn't have sums. Does have on the hunt, though. He's trying to get away. Looks like he might be able to. Stun will land there. Is there enough follow-up? Flash forward. Shun secures himself another. It's 2 and 1 now on the Zeri. As Gemini hung around for just long enough for Team Bliss to overextend.
You do wonder how this keeps happening, because it feels like every time Bliss's bot lane, they find themselves with a lead, whether that's off a gank or just a random kill here and there, but somehow they end up giving it back. And once again, it's Shun who's now ahead in the bot lane. You feel like for no reason. Maybe Bliss's bot lane just weaker in the 2v2, but feels like this is kind of unacceptable, giving the lead you started at. I mean, remember, you burned all 4 of their sums, and they were pretty much out of the game, I felt like, but now...
Ooh.
Well and truly back in it.
Dodges out there of Chelsea's knock up.
Ooh.
Keeps himself alive, but it's 3 members up here. They don't realize. Nice turn. Chelsea will flash away, and now Rest being looked at. There's 3 members all hunting him down. Does get a nice counter strike and jumps on out. Has lived, trying to turn it around, and somehow everyone survives, but Daystar coming across the wall will not be able to land that chain, and so with that, the play does stop, at least for the time being, but Gemini in the area. Why not also coming through, looking for Chelsea? Isn't going to be able to find that wall bang, and Gemini turning it around. Teleport from Rest means that a full health Jax has once again returned to the fray, and Jimian is on the flank. Why not? Looking for Chelsea, as is Arkia. It looks like they'll take him down, but what does it cost? Jimian now arriving to the fight. Arkia likely to be taken down. Headbutts away Rest to let himself survive for a little bit longer. But now all of Team Bliss are trapped in here. Glacial Prison comes through. Daystar does jump away, but why not? Should be taken out he is, and Rest picks that one up for himself. Flash forward, and it's answered by Liv to get himself out. And ultimately, the play does end up to be a 1-for-1, or maybe a 1-for-2 actually. But the Rift Herald as well. It's going to be picked up here by CFO.
Feels like CFO's skirmishing is just on another level here compared to Bliss, because that was so well played, especially... It felt like here... I think Rest and Chelsea were just dead, but they managed to get it out with some really fancy footwork. I'm not sure if it was mis-executed by Bliss. I guess we'll have a look at it. So initially, by Liv, this is really good. I don't have to ult, still tank all this up, and it's fine. You've got members nearby. I thought as soon as Rest jumped forward, okay, these guys are just for sure dead, but I don't think the knock-up was connected onto the Jax, and I think also the split target selection did end up costing them, because getting out here is just insane, especially finally managing to make it out under the tower as well. Really well played from CFO.
Absolutely. And with that, they've got themselves a nice little advantage. We have a 2-0-1 Jax on the top side, 2-1-1-0 on the bot side, and so the sides of the map definitely favouring the side of CFO at this stage. And with that, you'd imagine they're going to be able to process themselves into picking up these dragons and whatnot going forward. Of course, Team Bliss picking up that first one. It is something they've consistently done, is win out on these objectives early. But in this game, maybe going a little bit different, giving over that Sejuani and giving some of that early power to the side of CFO that they may have had in the past 2 games.
A lot of members around mid. Feels like Daystar is not a target that can be looked at, especially not with the Shiv. Well, they might try. There's a lot of wave clear here. And with that Shiv on LeBlanc, Shiv's now going to start to be able to poke a little bit. Doesn't feel like she's at the point where she's a real threat, especially not with Shun being accelerated already. Gemini getting so aggressive, feels so confident here.
Why not Hex flashing? It is going to cancel it. Now, Dragon in 40 seconds. Daystar should pretty comfortably maintain priority over this mid wave now that Static Shiv is collected by him. And so we'll see if they can transition that into winning the skirmish. But it feels like this Azir should be a little bit stronger, despite not having that Mythic yet. The Static Shiv really doesn't provide all that much. You really need to get to that Night Harvester and then the Lich Bane to start truly doing damage on this LeBlanc.
For sure. But once again, the LeBlanc should always have first move, especially with that wave clear. As Herald gets dropped on bot, and if Shun can grab that goal, which I don't think he will, he's going to go for the fight.
Glacial Prison goes wide, and Gemini being looked at. Lemus not here, though, notably. Does pop that ult, and is going to be able to arrive there. But a massive knockup by Shao C. It does go over to Why Not, though, the first kill at least. As Shun trying to find as much damage as possible. Nice knockup by Arkia there to try and confirm as much as they possibly can. And it's now Lemus versus Shao C and Jimmy, and he picks up one. He's looking for a second. It's a double kill. It's a triple kill for Lemus as they win the fight despite all odds. The Sivir now getting some much-needed gold, sitting at 4-1, competing up against Shun's 4-2 Zeri.
Crazy fight there in the 4v4. I think Jimmy and maybe just a bit too weak. Didn't have that item yet. It took so long to kill Gemini, but it didn't matter. And I'm so glad to see the Bliss is still fighting here in game number 3 because I was a little worried after game 2 that their mentals would be shot, but to have the fortitude to still keep this game very competitive, it's a good look. Engage did come on to Gemini, like the Glacial did go wide. With how long it took to kill Gemini, I thought this was just going to be a win here for CFO, but I think this is a really good spot for Lemus to fight in. There's a lot of AoE that can be found, and Daystar, he's a bit too mobile, so he takes so long to kill. I think might have been better for Jimmy to try and target Lemus with the ult. And I believe here he has the Conqueror, which obviously fully stacked, it does a lot of damage, but didn't have the attack speed to make use of it. Lethal Tempo and Joy as Unite. He's got that Leandries though. So he's online now.
Oh, Lived is at this fight. So this is their dragon.
Yeah.
But what is Rest going to get up on the top side? Notably, Liv does have teleport available to himself. So he is just using priority here for himself on the top side to walk on down and help the team. He's TPing away, but Jimmy's looking, headbutt him away. And there's not enough damage. In fact, it actually is. Why not manage to pick that one up? But Arkia being looked at will flash away. He's getting followed. A lot of CC coming down as Why Not joins the fray. Does have Keeper's Verdict available to him very, very shortly as Arkia will pop his ult first and Lemus is on the side. Is he going to be able to find the damage necessary? It doesn't look like it. Double kill over to Shun. That'll be his 5th and 6th kills picked up as they're trying to chase down Lemus, who did not have ult for that fight.
Once again, it feels like a tiny misplay cost Bliss a lot. I think the Renekton TP'd away too early. Needed to stay until that dragon was dead, but just greeted a bit for the top. And then if your Renekton TP's away and you don't have enough DPS to finish the drag, you're in big trouble. Because as soon as they notice this TP, they can TP and rest if they need, or they can just take this 4v4 knowing that, yeah, without that Renekton, there's not as much strength here, especially from the ults being down previously.
Lemus, down on picture-in-picture, does flash away. But back to the replay. Really feels like if Lemus had ult here, maybe he can do something because he is doing a lot of damage. Notably though, Rest did walk down himself. And so while Liv teleported away, Rest walked down and then used his teleport to answer once again.
Big trades on top side. Rest is really, really strong now.
He has Boots of Lucidity, by the way.
Interesting.
That's
also interesting is it should have second item BT, and I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, this LeBlanc's not going to be able to find value onto that Zeri.
Yeah. I think, you know, LeBlanc is ahead, and LeBlanc is doing well, and I still feel like she's going to be pretty useless now. It feels so hard. Feels like the window for LeBlanc doing well, unless it goes ultra late game, is so small. And I think this is the first second item BT we've seen in a very long time, you know, since those changes to it.
Yeah, since last split, really. Something we used to see pretty much every game.
Yeah. Shun's a smart boy, though. I think it's a really good game for her.
Noticeably, though, he will be lacking damage.
That is true.
He'll have less damage than you'd perhaps expect a 6 and 2 Zeri to have. But ultimately, he is still at 2 items compared to just the 1.5 for everyone else. So he will still probably be doing the most damage. And just have that sustain there to help him even more so. As Bliss trying to make headway here onto this tower, they might even just pick it up. In fact, they will. So this is the second game in a row now we've seen Team Bliss be able to pick up that mid tower before CFO have been able to do so. Zeri just making sure they know everywhere Team Bliss go.
Yeah, this is a very important fight, though. And I think with the BT, as long as Shun plays it well, CFO should just annihilate this fight. They have to be able to take Shun out.
Liv's going to be at a nice flank if they do choose to pull the trigger, and they will. Arkia finds 2, keep his verdict, does hit away Chelsea from the play, so they won't have that Rakan to disrupt the play as Liv's being looked at by Gemini. Good zoning, he hasn't used the Dominus just yet, but Why Not manages to pick himself up this Rift Herald, and he's even going in. Does get taken out, though. It was that Rift Herald for Why Not's life. Could be important. We'll see how much usage they get out of that Rift Herald. But again, it's more gold into the back pocket of Shun on the Zeri.
Sure. That gold is going to be put to good use. He's already pretty much unkillable. He's going to back it up with the damage and lives. He might have overextended in the side.
Does have Dominus, but he's probably just going to be taken out. He's going to prop it.
Ooh,
does have a lot of
nice
healing available for him. Cull the Meek does secure a bit of healing, but ultimately it's not enough. Lived, you see his frustration there on the player cams. Not happy with that death. Caught out a bit too far beyond his tower.
Here's, yeah. Gold continues to mount for CFO here. LeBlanc can start making some headway on the bot side. Does have himself CS lead in Gemini being looked at, but he's TP coming in from LeBlanc, so they're trying to commit to this.
Yeah, Gemini is trying to run away. Lemus does arrive, and he has got that ult pop, so will do a considerable amount of damage. As you see, fights happening on 2 fronts. Rest should be taken out. It's a shutdown that goes over to Daystar. Lemus as well. Going to pick himself up a kill. So it's 2 kills found for Team Bliss, and all it really costed them was that Sivir ult as well as teleport out of Daystar. But certainly much needed gold.
I think so. Big pickups ahead of Dragon especially, because I believe that allows a Navori to come through from Lemus, and I wonder how close Daystar is as well. Because if they can get those spikes before the next fight, it is really, really big. And this is a 3rd Dragon. So if Bliss can get here on spikes and contest this, they have a really, really good chance in this game if they manage to get it.
Yeah, Harvester.
Okay, I think that Bliss, this is a make or break fight for them, really. If they win this fight, they get this drag, they're on pace to win this game. But Shun is so strong, and he has both sums. Jimmy in.
Yeah, they're looking. Why Not does find a nice engage here, and it looks like they're just going to take out Jimmy in before the fight even happens. Shun pops his ult though, and Rest finds a 2-man counter-strike. They did not have the damage to find that initial kill. Chelsea as well, limping away. Lemus, no ult available on the Sivir, means that Shun is just too powerful. Rest continuing on forward. Wallbang landed. Keeper's verdict available. Flash away from Rest as Shun maintains full health, and Jimmian teleports back into the play.
Jimmian's done 6 damage. Can he do any more?
Looks like the play's still happening. There is a teleport available for Liv, but notably it's 15 seconds away. And Arkia's flash over the wall does get Emperor's divided. He did 6, and now it's up to 1,500. And the team fight will be won. It's 2 for 0, as well as this Dragon, notably taken away from Team Bliss, and it's the first one for CFO.
I think now the game does get quite hard for Team Bliss. It's going to give Shun the time to get towards that Navori. And there, I'm sure we'll get a replay of it, but they decided to commit everything to Jimmian. And to be honest, if you get this kill, I'm not sure you win the fight, because I think that if you use this many cooldowns onto not the Zeri, at this point you might just lose. But the insult to injury is that Jimmian manages to live, and then of course can TP back to this fight. So all that engage, all that punishment onto him was for naught, and Shun is just able to tear through the remaining members of Bliss.
Yeah. Both
that
Chelsea and Jimmian living on very minuscule amounts of health. And I think, admittedly, if you do get that kill onto Jimmian and manage to kite out the Zeri ult, you are favoured to win the fight.
Maybe.
Obviously, that is easier said than done.
For sure.
But Jimmian now being looked at again.
Yeah, round 2.
Does go
my
forward,
God.
he uses the Streamer Shuffle, and now he's just stuck in there. Daystar, though, did go back to his clone, and now he's looking for Xiaoxi. Does find some notable damage, but not the kill. Jimmy playing with fire there, not realizing that Why Not was in that bush. Does get away with it, though, and now he's actually putting out some heat onto Why Not.
Yeah.
Oh, and Shun's looking. Oh, nice by Why Not to deny the engage from Xiaoxi, but Emperor's Divide coming through means that Arky are likely to be dead. Why Not being looked at by Shun. Gets the cleanse out, but he's going to be taken out. He's looking for another one. It will be picked up there by Gemini, and now with that, it should be this Baron going down. Daystar not strong enough to poke them off this for now. And Lemus as well, out of mana. Really can't see them winning this one, but Daystar is in the area and he is looking admittedly. This does feel like a done deal though. It does go forward. It will be the Baron picked up. Especially with that smite available. Gemini pretty easily secures that one for themselves. And now a close game has kind of ballooned. Gemini being looked at though. Daystar does jump over the wall and Gemini is still alone. Second chain lands. He turns around, uses that ult. Will mean that Radiant Virtue now proccing. Shouldn't be possible for Daystar to kill him.
No, unfortunately not. Shun is really, really strong now. Got a lot of items on him. And this was, I mean, this was insane. Not often do you see an Azir dash into a Poppy. Now, importantly, LeBlanc had just gone back to her pad. I don't think they had vision of Jimmian, so it was kind of unlucky timing, but then they didn't have the damage in order to take him out. Once again, a lot of damage is traded off the back end. Daystar needs to reset here, and I don't believe he had TP. So it's just these two members left alone. Both of them taken out, and especially with Wino going down the Baron, not long after. Back to live though. Fighting is not yet done. Shun is so incredibly strong. He doesn't have cleanse, and there's always a window for that Renekton to flash W the ADC and just have everyone pile on him.
The Renekton classic. Lemus as well, notably, is strong. Not as strong as Shun, but I mean, if you can stall out the game, which a Sivir does fantastically well, you can eventually get to a fight where Sivir just 1v9 pentakills you. It's kind of similar to Zeri in that, but you're less reliant on your ult.
Sometimes with Sivir pentakills as well, they feel quite random. You don't really notice the damage until suddenly she's killed everyone. Good chunk here onto Jimmian. This is kind of the last person the Daystar can chunk because there's so much lifesteal and sustain from everyone else. TP is up and available though, so he might just TP mid and break this tower. Let's see what happens. TP comes out. A lot of Sivir wave clear. Is chewing through Shun's health bar. He needs to lifesteal that off the next wave. Has a red as well.
Yeah, Shun actually notably getting very, very low. If there was an angle to look, this could perhaps be it. They're on the hunt, going to be popped as Why Not does go forward. And nice work by Why Not. Denies 3, and Team Bliss are taking the team fight win. What a magnificent play by Why Not as Rest and Gemini now left picking up the scraps on the back end of the fight as Team Bliss charge down mid lane.
That's so, so important for Bliss. They're going to get a lot of gold. They can also make sure that they reset in here in time for the next dragon. And so much of that lived.
Oh,
does flash away. So much of that was just, again, random poke from Sivir that chunks out Jimmian and Shun, and then they were just too low to actually fight after that. Daystar's got 3 items. He's got the Lich Bane. Rest, he
they're
could be
looking
chased.
onto Rest. Rest has flash available for him. He's turning onto Daystar. Chain connects, so Daystar will be able to lock this Jax up for a while and actually chunking him down pretty low. Rest does flash forward though.
Oh.
He's looking for the kill. Arkia trying to save his mid laner. Will not be able to do so as Rest still going on in this fight, but Why Not arriving now should confirm the kill is taken. In fact, it will. But Rest, heroic effort there, does manage to make it a trade. 1 for 1, and Daystar committed a lot to that.
Yeah, trading 1 for 1, and that situation's really good. Now, Jimmian took 2 tower shots, as well as a lot of damage there from the boomerang. Shun was already low.
Why Not's play here was crazy.
He goes crazy, yeah. Finds all 3. Sets them up real nicely for Daystar just to come in and clean house. And he got so much gold off that. It was admittedly a lot of gold picked up. And this was so important by Rest as well. Because I think this should just be a free dragon pretty much for the side of Team Bliss. Especially if they can pick him here as well. But just dealt so much damage to Daystar. Missed the dash forward, use the pad back. A lot of the time, you want to just leave the pad there and kind of kite out a bit more, but I guess he didn't have the space.
Oh, back to live. Jimmian getting chunked down to half. Not sure what happened there, but...
Yeah, Jimmy not having lifesteal is a bit of an issue. There is no way for him to grab it.
Just going back there, Shock. If that was an electrocute AP LeBlanc, that Jax dies. Just saying.
I guess. I
miss that, what LeBlanc and what Pretender used to do on it.
True. Okay, now 2 dragons apiece. Gold lead is only 4k for CFO, so while this game has been in flux a lot, and at times it feels like CFO have just been able to walk their way to victory, now it feels like Bliss are once again pretty competitive in this game. LeBlanc is really, really strong on the spike, and I think if Daystar can keep finding the chunk on Jimmy, that leaves it all up to Shun in the team fight, and Lemus, I think, can realistically match that damage output, or at least come close.
Yep. Lemus at 3 items, has his armor shred coming through, or armor pen, shall I say. So it will mean that he is actually able to do something to the Sejuani, as well as the Rakan. See if Why Not can find another heroic engage like the last one. Feel pretty good. That is going to be Shirelia's popped from Chelsea. Won't find anything though. And so that feels pretty good.
Yeah, maybe looking around here now. Baron's 35 away.
Liv no flash. Neither top laner has flash.
Wow, look at Shun. 4 items.
Yeah.
And 2 pink wards, of course. Ooh, they don't manage to cut his recall. And he's got 2 pinks of his own.
Yeah, Rish really letting the team down here. You have to pick up some pink wards there, buddy.
All that gold in pink wards. It's crazy. Jimmy's working on the Zhonya's, which is a little weird, I have to say. I don't think it really does anything in this game. I think maybe even Banshee's just for the LeBlanc poke at this point. Because you're the only target, really. As Zhonya's has picked up for rest, and this Baron is now alive. Daystar is spotted here. Oh, that was almost nice. He tried to predict.
Yeah, Daystar getting absolutely massacred though by Shun, who is actually inevitably going to be stunned up in the middle of the team fight though. Arkia the first to fall, and we see on the bottom side of our maps there, Daystar very, very low. And with that, it's 5 full health bars for CFO. Some cooldowns used, but they are going to head towards this Baron. Maybe it can be stopped. Daystar's teleport very close to being up, but this Baron's getting absolutely shredded. Why not? Maybe not even going to be able to make it to the pit in time. In fact, he won't. And that is the Baron picked up. It's going to be the Shirelias. It's going to be the quickness. It's going to be the entrance, but they're not going to find it. Why not? Going to escape with his life as Daystar lands the chain onto Shun, who gets CC'd out, and Lemus takes the kill, but it's Rest. Rest is in the middle of everybody. He was completely fine, uses the Zhonya's, and so maybe that affords Team Bliss a way out of it. Ooh. Does flash forward, but Daystar quick on his feet, managing to get out there. Lived is going to get his TP cancelled, sorry, as he does go over the wall now with that blast cone. He's looking to try and recall. It's going to get stopped. Chelsea will find him in this bush. Actually, using the slice and dice. Now he finds a Gemini. Is he going to be able to get away? He's healing up. He's not going to get away, but how much time can he waste? It is Baron up, obviously, and so wasting time feels pretty good, but inevitably, he does go down there. Rest, though, saving that team fight and then perhaps letting Team Bliss get away with it.
Yeah. There was some pretty insane plays in that team fight. I hope we get a look back at it, but I want to say, I'm not sure if delaying the base is actually good for Lived, because he won't be up in time for this dragon. Now, maybe there's an argument that Bliss can't get to that dragon anyway, in which case, yeah, maybe the delay in the base is good, but I don't think it's super clear cut. We'll get a replay of it. And so much damage onto this Baron here. So early. Jimmy, he takes a lot of damage again. Chelsea, he finds the angle away from the Poppy W. Now, shouldn't he goes in? No sums to speak of. So it's just CC'd up there. Renekton is able to get on him, cleaning up nice and easy. And back to life.
Back to life. Why not? Keep his verdict. We'll hit Chelsea up, but the Emperor's Divide comes through, and that is Lemus going down. That is all of your damage going down, and now, not long after, it's Arkia who also falls. You have 3 members left alive. There is a static shiv, but there's Baron minions, there's Shun, there's the rest of CFO who are marching towards this Nexus to take their place going up in the next series. Can Team Bliss defend? Why not going in? Will use that steadfast presence, but he's absolutely taken out. And now 5 members versus 2. Liv Dominus, he's healing up a lot in the middle of the fight, but the stun connects from Rest onto Daystar, and he takes him out. It's only Liv left. It's going to be CFO who take this victory 3-0 against Team Bliss.
I do. Unfortunately for Bliss, their run ends here. They did make them work for it in game number 3 especially, but CFO just too strong at the end of the day. And I think that, while it's unfortunate that it ended for Bliss here, I think they still had a pretty good year overall. Right? They were very competitive in the LCO, and PCS is a strong region, and I don't think there's any shame in going down to a team like CFO. And I guess if there were something to take away for Bliss, I think that in all 3 games, I think they were ahead at least at some point in all 3 games, and they probably could have won. Yeah, potentially any of these 3 games. I really do think that they needed to just clean up kind of the random deaths and kills that end up given over here, because it feels like any time they get a kill, it's off them making a really good proactive play.
Yeah.
Some really, really nice stuff from Blitz, honestly. But then it feels like they give it back in the easiest way possible. And so CFO, they're happy to collect all those up. And somehow Shun just ends up with all that gold in his pocket every game and brings him to a win.
Yeah, absolutely. It did really feel like that, right? Like some of those plays that Bliss were having to pull off to get ahead were pretty spectacular. Not only like, obviously that one by Why Not in this game in that fight in the mid lane where he picks up 3 knockups and leads them to a win where you don't think they really have an option to. But then also, even the early ganks where he's playing perfectly around that vision to find the angle on the bot lane, it really felt like Bliss were set up for success in most of these games, but unfortunately did not have it in them to take it across the line. And it is unfortunate. It would have been nice to see them pick up their first win here, because I think in some of these games, they really deserved it. Even going back to against Beyond, game number 2 there, where it was Why Not on the Rengar, it felt like they had a real good opportunity to win that one, but weren't able to do it. And then all 3 of these ones, there were times where it was like, wow, Bliss might just take this game, and unfortunately, it was not to be. And they will be leaving the PCS now, unfortunately, and it will be CFO who do go on, and they'll be facing it up against the winner of tomorrow's game.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. I'm not even sure what to make of tomorrow's game. I guess we'll come to that in a bit. But CFO, I think they are looking quite a bit better. And I'm glad that they're back to their old style. While it's not necessarily the stacking dragons, I think there still was a lot of fighting going on. And that's what we'd like to see from them. I also think Jimian had a much better performance than he was for a lot of that second half of the split.
Yeah, good sportsmanship going on here.
Yeah.
I didn't see Jimmy in there. Maybe
he's gone.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to shake him.
He doesn't. That guy's already out of there. He's a paid,
he's all business.
Yeah,
and
he's all
done.
contract. His game's done. He's off. He's gone home. Nah, but very well played there. I think game 1 from Jimian was pretty special because he got very far behind, found 2 kills, and really just blew the game open substantially. And I think that's like something important when you think about CFO, is that currently there's not really anyone getting it done. I mean, you can't say that for today, but before today, there wasn't anyone where you're like, wow, this guy's going to carry them.
Yeah.
And Jimian traditionally, like even at the start of the spring, he wasn't, but at the end of spring, he really was that X factor in the team. And now today is starting to look like maybe he was again. Now, admittedly, game number 3, it was just the Shun show. But I think ultimately in games 1 and 2, what he was finding on Jace was really what carried them across the line, despite the early disadvantages. Not only he found himself at, but the whole team in general. And so maybe whoever wins tomorrow can look at that as someone to target when you're trying to find an advantage against this team.
Possibly, yeah. Who do you think you would give as MVP for the series then? Because I was thinking Chelsea for games 1 and 2 especially. I think in that game, I can't even really remember. That game was just such a blur in my mind of just fighting non-stop.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I honestly think you could make that. I think it has to be bot lane. I think it's either Shun or Chelsea, because I think the Vayne game, Shun played pretty much perfectly. Obviously, there was the one sort of 3v3 that happened down bot where he did go down, but he even played that pretty much as well as you can as a Vayne. And then in that game, obviously, on the Zeri, he was doing everything. He was getting the boys across the line for sure. I don't remember who he played in game 1, to tell you the honest truth, but I'm sure he played well, nonetheless. Who did he play?
I don't know. I was a big fan of the BT second, though. I think it is a really good choice in LeBlanc, and I think that a lot of the games, LeBlanc ends up being kind of a dud in terms of like damage. Even though it deals a lot of damage, it's not relevant damage. But I actually think this game, Daystar might have had one of the better LeBlanc performances, because he found a lot of poke on a Jimian who didn't have any sustain to deal with it. And he did manage to find burst onto Shun in fights he overextended. So I actually think that was, despite the loss, one of the more impressive LeBlanc performances. And I was happy with Daystar that game at least. Yeah,
definitely. I think one thing that's looked a bit bad is that quite often Lived was getting called out. And I noticed one time there, just before sort of the end of the game, it was just before Daystar teleported and they tried to kill Rest, was he got his flash forced out of him for no real reason, just because he was off wandering around the Raptors. And so it's things like that that really lead to your own demise, because then it means you've lost your flash. You can't get onto Shun in the next team fight. But going back to replays, it was, well, this was something that was very good for Bliss. From memory, it was Lemus who came in and picked up a triple kill.
Yeah, this was pretty nice. I think all that gold going over to your server feels pretty good. And I think Jimian didn't really find his mark in this fight. Just not strong enough early and maybe chose the wrong target. Kind of a dream scenario for Sivir, really. There's just a bunch of low health bars left and you can...
Especially with Shall see.
Yeah. Okay, maybe he can't be MVP of the series. No, he still played very well, I think.
Yeah.
Outside of that.
Yeah,
This was... Yeah, so this one I'm still not too sure about because I think even if they get this kill, so much has been invested and I think it's so easy for Zeri to chase here. Maybe if you sacrifice Alistair and just everyone else backs out, but...
Yeah, because Alistair can kind of just headbutt someone away and then commit himself.
Yeah, that might be the way to go. But either way, they didn't get that Jimian kill. And, you know, at the start of this fight, he'd done 6 damage. I think TP'd back in and had done 1,500 by its end. So not killing him did end up having a sizable impact on this fight. And I think Rest, a lot of this game went under the radar, but he was a real nuisance for Team Bliss to deal with. And I think a lot of the time, the LeBlanc is a really... solid option in the Jax, but Rest made it look somewhat playable. And look at that, he topped the damage.
He did.
More than LeBlanc. That's insane.
Yeah, I think that was hidden. I think I didn't really notice that. I mean, maybe some of that's off screen when it's just the Renekton and the Jax against each other, but that's impressive to have been able to do that much damage, even topping it over that Zeri who had infinite kills and the Sivir who had infinite kills, and the LeBlanc that just does invisible damage constantly. So massive game out of Rest. I think honestly, well played series in general for the side of CFO.
Yeah.
I will say, as they progress through the playoffs, they really do have to tidy up their early game, because if they are playing like this and they're against PSG, they're against Beyond, they're against J-Team, you do feel like this result would just be flipped basically, and they would probably be on the receiving end of a 3-0, because generally it was mistakes that Bliss made that the higher tiers teams in the PCS don't make that allowed them back into the game.
Yeah, I could see that too. I could definitely see CFO just slowly bleeding out. And I think after seeing the damage, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think Rest must have played really well that game. And the eye test, I think, definitely did, but a lot of it just was off screen. And there was so much going on. It was so hard to tell. But 5K ahead, really nice from him.
Yeah. I mean, here, this
was a big one, I think.
Yeah, this was a massive play, because it not only stopped the third dragon from possibly coming through from Bliss, but he picked up a kill as well.
Yeah.
I'll have to see. I mean, surely there's a way that Bliss could have played it better. Like maybe waiting until Daystar found Rest before committing the slice and dice from Renekton.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard. Maybe she could have spaced a bit longer, because I don't think she had any cooldowns there. Probably should have just stayed out of the flash E range. So a bit of disrespect ends up costing her, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, unfortunately, that is Team Bliss now. They're going to be done here in the PCS. They'll be going back to Australia. But it was a good showing in a lot of their games. I think they looked a lot stronger this time than the last time they came through. So certainly looking forward to seeing them perhaps again in next year's PCS. But we are going to go to a break now. And when we are back, we will have an interview with the MVP of the series.
Luscious, divine, I'll empty your mind, 'cause you want me to. I'm so twisted, you're addicted. I feel your pain, 'cause you want me to. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so bad for you.
Nothing going on and on yet. Keep it for the love, we're never giving up. See it before we're gone, yeah. Keep on moving up, we're moving to the top. Stuck in what we've got, yeah. Take nothing else for granted, every win and loss makes us who we are, yeah. Keep on looking up, we're looking up. Nothing going on and on yet. Keep it for the love, we're never giving up. See it before we're gone, yeah. Keep on moving up, we're moving to the top. Stuck in what we've got, yeah. Take nothing else for granted, every win and loss makes us who we are, yeah. Keep on looking up, we're looking up.
Welcome to our post-game interview, joining by CFO 小 C。我们今天是要采访邀请到的小 C，跟大家打个招呼吧。
大家好，我是 CFO 的辅助小 C。
Because I'm not feeling too well today, so we have to interview through online. 因为今天身体不舒服的关系，所以我们被迫的必须要远端的来跟小 C 进行采访。So the first question I want to ask you, today you played against Team Bliss. This is also the first time you play against an LCO team. How do you feel about playing against them? 那第一个问题就是你们今天碰到的是 LCO 的队伍 Team Bliss， 那这个也是你生涯第一次跟 LCO 队伍交手，你的感想怎么样？
我的感想就是他们今天其实给的压力不算太大，然后我们很轻松的迎战了他们。
I didn't think we faced too much pressure today. They didn't pressure us too hard, so I think we won rather easily. So next question. This is your first PCS season, and it wasn't easy. You've experienced a 7-game losing streak in second round robin. Is there anything you learned from this process? 这是你的第一个 PCS 的赛季，但其实你打得并不轻松。你们中间在第2轮经历了7连败。那这个7连败的过程当中，有没有什么学习到的地方？
这个7连败感觉只是因为我们给自己压力太大，然后沟通没有很顺畅，没有完整的发挥出自己的发挥，所以导致才会输这么惨。
I think we just had too much pressure on ourselves. Our communication often breaks down, and we always attempt to push our lead too much. Therefore, we made a lot of mistakes, and we enter that. Okay, so next question. You're going to face DCG on Saturday. What do you think is the key point facing against them? 那下一个问题就是你们在礼拜6要对上 DCG， 你觉得对上他们的这个系列赛重点会在哪？
重点应该是在于龙团还有压制东山的发挥吧。
I think mission will be the key point in this series. If we can manage to stop him from farm, from doing damage in team fight, we have a big chance to win. Okay, so is there any message you want to send to DCG? 有任何你想要跟 DCG 讲的话吗？
准备下去吧。
I'm just ready to go home. Okay, so before I let you go, are there any words you want to say to your CFO fans that always been supportive of you? 有没有任何你想要对 CFO 的粉丝说的话，跟大家现在讲一下？
谢谢你们一直来支持，我们会更加努力的。
Thank you for always cheering for us. We'll work even harder and try to go worlds. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me once again. Let's go back to our tester desk. 好，那这就是我们今天的赛后访问了，我们就把时间交还给主播台喽。
That's the disc.
Yeah,
That's us.
you heard him. It was a very easy game for him, apparently. He got... Honestly, the bot lane didn't look that easy for him most of the games, but
No.
I mean, maybe he felt differently. And I think he identified probably the main threat of DCG there in that interview as well. That was Mission. And ultimately, I mean, if they want to take the win over DCG, maybe going back and looking at what PSG did, because they made Mission not look so strong. And really, I mean, DCG do just tend to fall apart a little bit when there is no Mission roaming around and controlling the map. So definitely, I think he's identified something ahead of his next series, but we'll have to see.
That will be a weird series, I think. That's two teams that are really just not that clean. I could definitely see that one going to 5 games. And I'm not even sure if it would be one team winning 3 games or if it would be one team, you know, eventually losing themselves 3 games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like getting ahead, throwing it. But it'll be interesting. And we've got to talk about tomorrow's matchup, of course, is Chiefs taking on Frank. And I think this might be the first one that's potentially LCO favored.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean,
It's hard to say.
it is hard to say because last split, Frank, it's not.
No.
At all. But this split, Frank, they haven't been looking so good. I mean, they have been ramping up gradually, I'd have to say, throughout the split, but ultimately they never really found their groove or their identity, and it certainly seems like Chiefs did identify what their strengths were in their last series against DCG. So if they're able to do something akin to that, then I do feel pretty positive about them. But obviously, I mean, it's a story for tomorrow, and it is exciting. I mean, ultimately, the Chiefs have picked up 1 win so far already in the playoffs, and that's matching what they did last time. So if they're able to pick up at least 1 here, they would have had a more successful run than in spring. And ultimately, I'm sure they are looking to take the win so they can go up and face J-Team.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely don't think tomorrow will be a 0-3 either way. I think that one is going to more, but we'll see how far. And of course, with the win today, CFO do advance to face DCG later on in the week. And yeah, J-Team will face the winner of tomorrow's match. So some pretty interesting things, and I feel a little bad because I feel like the winner of tomorrow's match having to come up against J-Team is pretty scary.
Yeah, it feels like you're just winning to almost certainly lose because, to be fair, J-Team did look pretty weak in their first series. I think an uncharacteristic showing, I want to say, and I don't think they're going to put so much priority over 3 Tristana picks ever
Probably
again,
not.
as well as they gave Betty Kaiser 3 times, so some interesting decisions by J-Team, and notably, their drafting hasn't always been the best, so they have run themselves into an entirely AP team comp and lost to solo
That
kills
is true.
Udyr at least once, but I mean, we'll have to see. It is exciting. I think the PCS playoffs really are ramping up now. We've seen quite a lot of 3-0s, but I think as we progress, going to be a whole lot more closer series, and I'm honestly excited to see which teams go to Worlds because I feel like no matter who goes, they're going to have a good showing and maybe even upset some of those bigger regions because I don't think the players are as bad as most people think minor region players are.
I think you're right. I think that PCS is one of the closer ones to major regions. Which 2 teams would you want to go? Not like will go. Who do you want to go?
Is this do I want them to go there for their success or because I like
'Cause you
think
like
they'll be
watching
like
them.
Okay, because I like watching them. I think PSG because I think they have the best chance of perhaps taking games just because they don't make as many mistakes, and J-Team because Driver runs those dudes. But that does do us now for, obviously, Match 5. Team Bliss, unfortunately, do fall out now of the PCS playoffs. But come back tomorrow where we can see Chiefs taking on Frank.